Hey everybody, welcome to Hang Up. I'm Dillahunty. This is my weekly show. And now it's over. I just decided I don't want to do this any. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. I promised I wouldn't do any April Fool's joke. That just being stupid. Hey, I'm here. And we're going to do a show just like normal. And that was the last thing that comes close to anything as like a planned April Fool's joke. But yesterday was my birthday. And I was born in 1969, the best year, without doubt. Because a few months after I was born, humans walked on the moon for the first time. I was born in March, and in July, we stepped off and took that giant leap for mankind by standing on the moon. There's all kinds of jokes, like, oh, we found out it wasn't made from green cheese and we never went back, but it's true that we haven't made a trip to the moon in over 50 years. And today I watched the Artemis 2 moon orbit mission launch. As a matter of fact, less than half an hour ago. I watched the Artemis 2 break through the supposed firmament that the flat Earth, young Earth creationists want to tell us is there or should be there. I get that that's not actually what would have happened even under their model, but it's funny. And I got to watch it because Simon Dan was streaming it. Thanks to him for doing that, or I might have missed it completely. And I just want to let everybody know you need to prepare yourselves for the flat earthers and moon landing deniers to start making excuses about CGI, AI, fake news, because every single time we expose their scientific ignorance, their failed skepticism, and their cartoonish conspiracies, they just throw out more excuses. They've had a pastor fly them and their representatives to Antarctica to break all of their models by watching the sun orbit around over the course of a day and never set. We have satellites, we have space stations, we have missions that have left our solar system, we have photographs that have been sent back, transmissions from space objects, and we have artifacts on the moon. And yet there's people who are still absolutely in denial. And whether it's because they think there's a grand conspiracy to lie to them or deceive everybody, I still don't always know what the motivations are, but it puts them in a position of denying every other fact about reality, right down to gravity. I mean, it's been 54 years since we've had a moon mission. This one does not include a landing, but it will take human astronauts, I think, further than they've ever been. I think it's going to go slightly wider around the moon than humans have ever been. It is an attempt to test the Orion spacecraft's life support system in order to prepare for future moon landing missions, which would be great. The crew is Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, who is going to be the first Canadian to travel around the moon. So, good job, eh? I've heard that Trump may be speaking in order to try to steal my audience in a couple of hours. Just ignore it. There's no way, whether he's talking about the Supreme Court or the catastrophic voluntary war of aggression that we are in as Israel's plaything, or if he's going to talk about the moon landing, nothing he says is going to be worthwhile. A good chunk of it's going to be untrue, inaccurate, whining, and self-aggrandizing. I bet he talks about the ballroom. I mean, quite frankly, that's what he spends as much time on as anything. Ballroom and golfing. So, but as I watched it and I thought about what I used to believe when I was a Christian, I was born the year we landed on the moon. There was a great reverence for science. It's part of the reason why we had so many TV commercials with people in lab coats, because people revered science in a way that probably wasn't particularly healthy or wise. And yet science was making great progress in a number of areas. I mean, we walked on the moon. We're able to communicate instantly from one country to another without paying long distance fees or telegrams or waiting instantaneously. I could, if I had his number, I could call Simon Dan right now. I know he's up. He's halfway around the world. And if it wasn't too late for him, we could get him to jump in for a show at some point. That's amazing. And this is what science has done for us. And it makes me think of, the various descriptions that are poetic in the Bible and in other religious literature about, you know, the sky, the heavens above, and how heaven and hell were a carrot and a stick for some, but were also something to aspire to, not just avoid and not just a matter of fact. There was something about learning about heaven and hell while I was a believer that fundamentally made it feel different than it did as I was, deconstructing and finding my way out. We've got tons of questions about all of these claims about a soul, about an afterlife, about a heaven and a hell. And it seems that there's no God offering any sort of clarity on these issues. And yet there's no shortage of opinions. There's no shortage of sincere believers telling us what heaven's going to be like. How do they know? Did they read in a book? Have they been there? Did they hear some story? Because we've heard stories about people supposedly going to heaven and then being sent back. And yet we keep finding out that they're fraudulent when we can confirm anything. And the rest of it can't be confirmed. And curiously, people's near-death experiences seem to mirror either the religion they were already a part of or the one they're surrounded with culturally. And there's very few exceptions. And yet they can't all be going to a real place if they're going to different places and seeing slightly different things. It reminds me of how the description of aliens converged on big, tiny little gray creatures, big heads, almond dark eyes. Instead of, robots and insects. I actually had, for my birthday, Arden and I watched Starship Troopers, which she had never seen. And despite it being a 1997 movie, I think some of the special effects on the bugs were held up pretty good for as old as it is. It's almost 30 years old, but spent a lot of time thinking about heaven and hell. I've done lectures on it. I've talked about it. There's so many problems, and I'm not the only one. Tonight's guest is an ex-evangelical who recently posted a video about heaven sounding a lot like hell. Taylor's a regular host on Chewed Gum, and as we both talked about this, I'm eager to find out if anyone out there can call in and set us right on this topic, because I agree. Heaven sounds a little like hell, a little hellish to me, based on what I understand, based on what I was raised with, but it still sounds a little better than the hell I was warned about. Maybe. But I don't have any reason to think either of them are true. And when I think about it, isn't this life that we're currently experiencing preferable to either the proposed heavens or hells I've heard about? And wouldn't that make this life the best life, the preferred life, the closest thing to paradise out of the three? Please welcome Taylor Yoder to the Hangout for the first time. Oh, I think you're muted. I don't hear. Are you muted in Zoom?
I do that all the time. I'm
That's
so
all right.
sorry.
That's all right.
I
Welcome.
am here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this. You recently did a video on heaven sounding like hell, and it's kind of on YouTube now, but you didn't really start out on YouTube. You've kind of transitioned and amplified YouTube recently. How did that transition come about?
Because I grew an audience on TikTok, and as you know, TikTok is so flimsy when it comes to being banned, being not banned. And I kind of made the mistake of not diversifying when it came to my content. I was just on TikTok, which I know a lot of content creators will tell you that's a bad idea to put all your eggs in one basket. And I heard that YouTube was very consistent, and it seems like it has been for many years. So I wanted to make the switch, and I also thought it would be really fulfilling to do longer form content, because I feel like TikTok, you don't really get much of an opportunity to do that. It's very quick, like 1 minute, 30-second videos, which can be fun, but also if you have more to say about a topic, it's not great. So yeah, I've been having fun on YouTube. and doing it a little differently. But it was a big adjustment from going to talking really fast and getting my point in within like 50 seconds versus trying to make a 20 to 30-minute video. But now I feel comfortable with it, but it was a struggle at first and felt super awkward.
I find that I'm trying to get a little more succinct. Once upon a time, I used to target, oh, I want to do a 15-minute video and it would be an hour. And I want to do a 15-minute video and it'd be 45 minutes. And now I'm targeting 15-minute videos and they're like 23. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually a little bit of a test for me today because when you were behind the scenes, Arden was like, "Oh yeah, Matt's going to talk for maybe 15 to 30 minutes," and I just on a whim said, "I think it's going to be closer to 8," and I'm pretty sure that it was right at 8, but did pretty
Yeah,
good.
I it's I also was not prepared for how long, well, at least for me, for my videos, how long I had to actually record something, and then when you
Mm.
edit it down, it's like half the amount of time, and it's very, I don't know. I just so was not used to editing and all the time it actually takes to do YouTube, but
And then
I think
part of
it's
your
worth it.
audience will play it at double speed, so
Yeah,
and they're only
that's
going to
true.
get like the McNuggets out of it. I That's why once upon a time I stopped editing.
Oh,
I
really?
think I post 4 videos a month for the Patreon that are not, well, there's additional things that get posted as line clips, but 4 original videos on different topics. And so yesterday, I finished posting the ones for March because it was the last day of March, and that's how I do it is do it on the last day or get it posted on the last day. And yeah, none of them have any edits. I have an
Dang.
outline and I start it up and it's like the Atheist Debates Patreon project presents blah 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 blah. And then I push a button and I sit there and I talk for however many minutes I till I run out of, notes. And then I
Yeah.
roll credits and
You're a
I'm too
seasoned
lazy.
professional. I'm sure it's like
It's
second nature.
like I realize people they watch me live all the time and I do live all the time. And so I
Hmm.
kind of treat them like live and occasionally I will start recording and get like 2 minutes in and fumble over my words and be like, no, you're not in the headspace for this. And I'll just delete it all and start over.
Yeah.
And it may be the same, it may be different. But we so I know that you've been doing chewed gum for ages and everybody's loving it. But when I posted, I was like, "Hey, Taylor's going to come host with the Hang Up with me." And I know there's a bunch of people who are watching for the first time. By the way, if you're here watching for the first time, and we are also going out in vertical video, I don't have the call-in studio up. The number is 720-619-2288, and there's also a link down below in the description for how you can connect to call-in studio live. We're looking for theists and I'll take calls from non-theists as well, but I'm really looking for somebody to describe heaven and hell, what they like about it, what they know about it. Is this something that we've misunderstood? How do we know if we've misunderstood? Is hell something we want? Should we be aspiring to? How do you know? Because I couldn't find an answer. I was raised primarily Southern Baptist, but definitely fundamentalist evangelical. Taylor, how were you indoctrinated into religion and then found your way out?
I grew up in a very basic evangelical family that went to a lot of like non-denominational churches, whatever that means. They were just pretty, I guess, chill compared to a lot of churches where they do the whole wear jeans and we have bands type thing. And it's honestly a little bit of a boring story, but what I can say is politics changed everything for me, which
Mm.
is interesting because a lot of people have told me that they become atheists and then they change their politics. But for me, it was the opposite. And because of like the first time Trump came into office, I was seeing the evangelical community and culture of it all. It felt like I was seeing it for the first time. I was very alarmed and confused. Looking back, I shouldn't have been alarmed and confused because I think a lot of Christianity translates into like an authoritarian type system. And when you were talking about conspiracy theories earlier, that actually played a huge impact on my deconstruction too, because I had a lot of people around me get severely into QAnon, and it was freaking me out. Like, it was really freaking me out. They were basically mashing QAnon and Christianity together, trying to make it like this whole thing. And it was so bad to the point where it just felt like they were living in a fantasy. And it felt, it's weird to say that considering I was still believing in Christianity, but for some reason my brain accepted Christianity but didn't accept anything else. And that, I feel like that's the power of indoctrination, right? Maybe if I was like indoctrinated into believing the conspiracy theories, maybe I would. But very quickly I was like really creeped out by that. And it made me question a lot of things. Probably the first one, like many people, being hell, because with my politics changing, so did my morals and values. And I was leaning way more into empathy. And then, I was thinking about hell. I'm like, something about that just doesn't really sit right with me. And how can I justify it? And I think when I was Christian, I didn't even think about it. I didn't want to think about it. I remember that specifically because I couldn't imagine living in a so-called paradise when people are burning in hell for all of eternity, especially people you know. But yeah, I just honestly got out of my small hometown and talked to people. That's how boring it is actually just going outside of your bubble and meeting different people and finding out that things you've been told aren't true and that there are different perspectives and there are people of all different belief systems or atheists or people with different sexualities, races, whatever.
Yeah.
And they are living a happy, healthy life. Because Christianity did this thing to me where they're always like, you can't truly be happy or healthy or at peace if you're atheist or anything else. And so when I went out into the real world and figured out that wasn't true, it had me questioning literally everything else.
I'm one of the people whose politics started to change before I actually found my way out of religion. Granted, I was less involved. So like I left home at 18 after graduating and went in the Navy, and I was in the Navy for 8.5 years. And for a good chunk of that, I mean, for all of it, I still believed, but the Navy churches were awful. It almost felt sacrilegious to go and get some kind of weird, watered down, you're a Southern Baptist and you're there with an Episcopalian, a Catholic, a Pentecostal. And so it was like going to a Unitarian Universalist type of ceremony where they didn't want to say anything to offend anybody. So it wasn't like the church I grew up with. And also I was out, on my own for the first time and, having fun. And it was not as important. And it was also exposed more. I was in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I remember, having to actually be a party of kicking good people out of the military.
Wow.
Just because they were gay. And, I told the story before about one guy, we all knew he was gay, and he got a letter from his boyfriend. He stuffed it under his rack, and somebody else went and stole it and turned it into the Master at Arms and said, I think this guy is gay. I found this on the, on the deck. And he ended up getting processed out. And it was like, here's one guy who's only in the Navy because he was there to avoid going to jail. That was something that they used to be able to do with troubled 18 to 24-year-olds or so. It would be like, oh, Your Honor, I don't want to ever do this again. He's like, well, I'd believe that if you had some discipline, if you were willing to like join the military or whatever, and then boom, we'll suspend your sentence. But he's in the military to avoid going to prison. And the other guy's in the military looking for an actual career and is a squared away 4.0 sailor, except that he's gay. And then we have to kick him out. And it wasn't just the gay thing. There were plenty of others. When I came across, I'm a magician, and I would do card tricks that I'd practiced forever. And I thought I was a pretty fundamentalist, demons were real type thing. But I'd do a card trick for somebody in the Navy, and the guys who came from more demon-based background churches than I did would freak out, and they'd be like, oh, you got dark energy running through you. And so I would literally show them, no, here's what I did. And they'd be like, that's not what you did the first time. So I used a demon the first time, but I fooled you the second time just with practice.
I didn't even think about the fact that people would view magicians that way, but that makes a lot of sense. But also with the don't ask, don't tell. So if someone found out someone was gay and told, then they get kicked out?
Yeah.
Okay. That is, I wonder, like, it sounds not fitting that they call it don't ask, don't tell because it implies that the person would have to, you know,
it was a
tell
compromise that Bill Clinton signed.
themselves.
Bill Clinton signed it into law as a compromise, basically to allow you could serve in the military if you were gay, as long as you didn't tell anybody you were gay. And the military on admission is not allowed to ask you if you're gay. However, if it ever comes out, and there was nothing that was preventing like people from asking you while you were in, and if it ever comes out and somebody decided they wanted to do something about it, which was also a bit sketchy, then they process you out. Now, I haven't been in the Navy in many, many years, so I don't know what the status of trans folks in the military has come and gone multiple times, and it depends on who's sitting in the Oval Office.
Right.
But when I started changing my views on that, about, hey, hang on, who's the good person here? You know, the people who are biblically bashing these nice, hardworking people who, I heard you talk about this in either that video or one of the others, where you're like, you look at LGBTQ people and you're like, do I think these people deserve to go to hell? And that raised a contradiction.
Yeah, exactly. I was working at a very progressive company and I was meeting all sorts of people. I was meeting people who I was told they either have something seriously wrong with them or they're lost or whatever. And I just grew really strong bonds with people at work. It's so simple, but that's what it was, where I was talking to them and they were genuine people. They were happy. There was nothing different. There was nothing different about them. They were just other humans. And so, also when I was working with all different kinds of people, they told me about their experiences with Christianity and they were all horrid. And so at the time I was still a Christian, and so I had that mindset of, I'm going to show them what a real Christian is and be like, loving and kind and stuff, which like, whatever. I guess that's a better approach than some others. But
although maybe, I mean, the Mormons are the nicest people, but it's because they lie and hide what's really going on. As we've seen in this abusive series, the entire season of The Bachelorette, I guess, just got canceled because she's a physically abusive monster.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also true. I think I was in denial about a lot of the Christian teachings. And I think that's why when it started mixing in with politics is when it was hard to ignore.
Yeah.
Because all of that really started coming out. And then there were a lot of protests and stuff happening while I was at that company, and I would join the protests and I'm just like, why don't I want to associate at all with evangelicals? There became a point where I was embarrassed to call myself Christian or to associate myself with them. That didn't make me atheist. I just got lucky that I was no longer convinced. But yeah, that definitely made me not want to be a part of them before that. Like any part of organized religion was not it.
No, there was a point in time in the Navy, on your dog tag, you had to put your religion. And when I first went in, it just said Baptist. And there came a time where, while I was in, my views on God had changed. I was nowhere near an atheist, no, not even really agnostic. I still believed in some version of the Bible God. But when I got my dog tags renewed, they didn't say Baptist anymore. They said NRP, which stood for no religious preference. And I have to admit, just being able to list NRP gave me this. I mean, it's like stamped on your dog tag. This is your identity. Yeah. What's your religion? You were Southern Baptist, and now you have no religious preference. Just thinking about the impact of changing the dog tag allowed me to eventually, once I was out of the Navy, and I dug in more on some subjects, find my way and transition out. It took another, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, because I'm slow.
Yeah.
I'm slow like that. And you are too young to remember, almost certainly. But when I was in the Navy, I was also a full-on Rush Limbaugh ditto head. So I was right wing in the extreme. But I will say this: what was extreme right wing in 1991? Very, very different from what it is
Right.
now. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I changed some views, but I couldn't give up on the God thing. I remember a conversation with my uncle where he's like, well, ask your atheist friend, where did he get his morals from? And I was like, it's mind blowing. But that was only mind blowing because I'd never spent any time thinking about or reading or studying the
Right.
various moral models and proposed theories and everything else.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
were
that
talking
makes
about,
sorry, go ahead.
no, you're talking about, thinking about, do these people deserve to burn in hell? And then there's the whole thing of, is that what happens in hell? Do you burn in hell? Is it annihilation?
Right.
Is it separation from God? Is it what? And it's
Right.
the
Right.
conversations I've had it's like, well, if you ask, like if you asked Christian me, do these people deserve to go to hell? My answer would have been, doesn't matter what you think they deserve.
Yeah.
That's not relevant. Yeah, but wouldn't a just, is God just? Because wouldn't a just God treat you as you deserve to be treated? He
Right.
does, and you just don't know what you deserve. So are you
Right.
saying these folks do deserve hell? Yes, we
Right.
all do. I'm just
Right.
forgiven. And that's the excuse, is that you spin this thing where it's all terrible. You're just the preferred one.
Right. And another big thing that opened my eyes when it came to hell was I was the only one and first generation college graduate, and I took a class specifically about witchcraft, which sounds weird. It was just about witches, like the history of witches. And I learned a lot about King James and the bullshit he did. And then I also had other religious, like, themed classes where I learned about the history of hell. And once I started talking about the development of hell and how that happened over time, I was like, wait, that's weird, because I was looking at it as this objective thing that's not changing, right? Why would it change according to the time period or culture?
Yep.
And then I had a conversation with with an acquaintance who is Jewish, and I asked them, like, why don't you believe in hell? And he's like, well, hell's not in the Old Testament. I'm like, what are you talking about? And that's when I started looking more into it, and I'm like, damn, I did not know that they were not saying all of that, and also switching out words, and just pretending like there's no difference between them when it came to the Old Testament. So that was pretty eye-opening to me, because it was no longer this objective thing that was consistent in the Bible. It was very clearly changing over time with the culture. Yeah.
Yep. It is. I gave a lecture on hell for the ACA. It's online. It's on YouTube. And I also gave another talk about hell in Florida, and that one's online as well. But it strikes me that, the Jewish notion of when you're dead, you sleep with your fathers is the closest they get to, there being a you. And then you've got Sheol and Gehenna and these places where we're dumping bodies, and they become kind of euphemisms for some kind of hell. But you don't really get the Bible doesn't speak much about hell at all.
Yeah.
And it's got a couple of light verses. And the bulk of what most people imagine from hell comes from the Apocalypse of Peter, which then becomes versions of Dante's Inferno with the different circles of hell. And it comes from, like, I think Apocalypse of Peter has these descriptions of, like, liars being held up by forks through their tongue, and women who murdered babies would be, like, in a pool of yuck up to their necks with the babies as little angels circling over them. It's very cartoonish.
Yeah.
And the scarier bits of it stuck. I remember homosexuals had to climb a mountain and jump off onto all of the other homosexuals that were there, and they would basically just get pushed down to the ground, and they would crawl out from underneath the pile to march back up to the mountain and jump off again.
That's so weirdly specific for no
It is.
reason.
And it's I don't fully know what story it was supposed to tell, and I'm never the person to ask about that. Like when they're like, what is the meaning of this song or this Shakespeare thing or whatever? I'm like, meaning? I read things as what they are, but the closest I could come is that they're being punished both for their rebellion against God's plan to be fruitful and multiply, but also the entire process is the pinnacle, literally a mountain, of futility. And if the goal is to reproduce, then the common trope is that homosexuality is, complete exercise in futility. And so that's the closest I've come to making sense of that really weird passage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I guess. Like, if you had to translate it in any way.
Yeah.
I don't know what else it would mean.
Figure out a way to make it work. Hey, we're getting callers in, and there's a couple of them been on for a little bit, but we're talking a little bit for those who are just tuning in, and I know we've got vertical video, so I'm really looking forward to getting some theists in, because Taylor and I come from different Christian backgrounds. We no longer believe in a God. We're both godless, heathen, secular, skeptical, blah, blah, blahs. And we also don't believe in heaven and hell, but we also don't see how it makes any sense. Like, Taylor did a great job touching on subjects that I don't think I ever mentioned at all about, the absurdity of, hey, there's a mansion for you and streets of gold, and,
Right.
But there's big questions about, I remember an argument I made that my mom will not go to heaven no matter how much she thinks she will, because in heaven there's no suffering, and in heaven I won't be there, and there's no way my mom could not suffer knowing that her kid is in hell being tormented.
Yeah, no, exactly. I feel like that's one of my biggest issues, because I ask Christians this a lot about that specifically, and I get all sorts of different answers. One is like, you basically get a lobotomy and you just get brainwashed into forgetting about your loved ones, which I'm like, if you forget about your loved ones and your memories of them or whatever, are you even still like yourself? I don't think so.
Nope.
Or they'll say that you will just automatically know that this is justice and you'll understand God's justice, or like it's just they deserve it and you'll understand that. But I'm like, couldn't you still have empathy in that moment though? Like, let's say, someone's child kills somebody and they go to prison for the rest of their life. You could be like, you deserve to go to prison, but I'm sad. I'm sad that you like wasted your life or whatever. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you still be sad in heaven then if that was the case? I can't really get an answer that sounds like anything, honestly.
The ones that say, oh, you just don't understand. I mean, God's enacting true justice, and you're just incapable of understanding justice right now. And my response to that is, doesn't that mean that my sense of justice and God's are in conflict? And of course, they'll say, yes, that's the whole point. And I'm like, so how do I tell whose sense of justice is right? Mine or God's? Well, God's always right. How do you know that?
Yeah.
Where's the demonstration? Oh, it's by definition. God knows everything and you know virtually nothing, you little peon. Okay.
Right. Right.
But I can look at situations on earth and say, this is more fair and this is less fair. And I can extrapolate those out to a broader sense. And what you're telling me is that even if all of my normal understandings of justice make sense here and are largely consistent with what we're trying to actually enact here,
right.
And if I extrapolate them, they lead to the opposite position of what you're saying God's going to do, and it's moral. How do you know that that's actually correct? And you're not just, maybe you're the one that's deceived.
Right. Because that's a good point of, we're trying to have justice here on earth, and Christians also try to do that. But if they can't sense, or if they can't trust, human judgment, why would you even try to get justice at all on earth? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, we got callers lining up, and I really would like, if you're a theist out there of any stripe, if you're a Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jew, if you have some concept of hell that we've overlooked, and if you have some good reason to believe that yours is true and good, we're trying to find out. Is heaven actually someplace we want to go? Is hell someplace we want to avoid? Is annihilation the preferable option? Especially as I've already come to grips with annihilation. I think I'm going to be annihilated.
Yeah. So. How are your feelings about living forever? Is that something, because I know a lot of people say that horrifies them. How do you feel about that concept of living forever? Do you feel like you would like it or hate it?
I know enough to know that I can't speculate that far out. Like 73 billion years from now, am I still going to, feel the same way? I think my general take is I'd like to live for just as long as I'd like to live and not a second further. And if that turns to be, if it turns out to be unending or forever, cool. Because if it's the same as here on Earth. Like, I want to live until it becomes preferable to die, to where the quality of life is such that it's not worth continuing, or it's diminishing to the point. I'm a huge proponent of death with dignity. I've had a good friend of mine suffering with chronic pain for many, many years contacted me. I knew he was going to do it for quite a while, but he contacted me about a week before he actually did it, because he didn't really tell anybody until it was too late for anybody to act. But most of us were completely supportive of it. But yeah, I want to live for just as long as I want to live. And I have no way of knowing, would I like to be 300 years old? I don't know, because I've never been 299. Maybe after 299, it sucks.
Right. And I feel like it's talked about as if living forever is just everyone's preference, which I think a lot of people are severely mistaken about that, because they don't know what it's like to live inside every single person's brain. And some of us find it exhausting to be in our own brain. So the thought of living forever is not that fun.
I mean, it might be cool to live forever if I could spend time in other people's brains.
Right. Jump around.
Yeah. All right. So we got callers lined up. We're going to start with Michael. Friends of him calling from Oregon. Michael is spiritual and says God is not hiding, and he'll explain why. So welcome, Michael. You're on with Taylor and Matt. How are you?
Greetings. God's love to you.
Okay. What can I do with God's love?
That is your decision. I give you God's love. Now everyone's watching.
How can you give me God's love?
Love all things with God's love.
I don't know what that means. Like, I can't give you Taylor's love.
Well, let's say you have a lover. You don't know what to do about it, what stance to put on it, how to deal with things. Love them with God's love. It's pretty clear that way, isn't it?
No, it's not clear at all. I genuinely don't understand what you're talking about, but I know that you wanted to. I know that you wanted to demonstrate that God's not hiding, and I might be asking the wrong questions. So let's start. Let's start again. Hey, Michael, welcome. You say God's not hiding, and you can explain why. How can you show us that God isn't hiding?
Which God are you referring to? They all have names. Which one are you referring to?
I'm going to take a step back, because I'm in a good mood. And I'm about to be really mean. You called in to explain that God isn't hiding, and you can explain why. You don't then get to ask me what God am I talking about. You're the one advocating for a God that's not hiding. I don't think there is one. I just wanted you to demonstrate it.
Very well. I am the Lord of gods, owner of the universe, your bodies, the planet, and I would like to walk you through my own experience shortly with a few definitions, and then I'll be out of your way.
I'm sorry. Did you say that you're God?
I am the Lord of gods.
The Lord of gods. What does that mean?
Master, Lord of dragons. I have lots of names.
Okay, we're going to let you go. Thanks, Michael.
Was that serious or no?
I don't know, but here's the thing, and apologies to everybody who doesn't quite get it. There are calls I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time on in the future, because if that person's not serious, then we're wasting a lot of time. And if
Right.
that person is serious, we're probably still wasting time. If you're going to call in and say, hey, God's real, cool. You don't then get to ask me, which God am I asking about? I'm asking about the God that you just said was real. And if we get, I am the Lord of gods, Star Master, and Dragon, blah, 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 I don't think we're likely to have
Right.
a good conversation, because we are not engaging with
Yeah.
reality in the same way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Which is frustrating, because here I thought we were actually going to get a theist that was going to defend or explain something about heaven and hell. Instead, we got the Star Master, Dragon Master.
Yeah, we got God himself
the
instead.
Lord of gods. Yeah. It's a weird day in the neighborhood. All right. We have Alexander's calling from Alabama. Pronto him was calling about what he used to believe heaven and hell was like as it is. Hey, Alexander, how are you?
Hey, Matt, happy birthday. How you guys doing today?
Good.
I'm old. And thank you.
Yeah, you're getting old. You're getting on up there. You don't lost your hair, and I think you ain't got your
I haven't
teeth
lost
no
any
more,
hair.
it looks like.
I cut it all off years ago. That way I can pretend like I'm not losing any hair.
Yeah, you're still hanging in there, though.
Thank you. What do you got for us?
Probably got about 30 or 40 or 50 more years on you. Who knows? And with how modern medicine is going, age is probably
you're approaching Star Master, Lord of the Gods area, because I'm not the subject of the show.
But what I used to think heaven and hell was like was, I used to try and think it was like God was the ultimate good authority. So I figured all the good things were, obviously with heaven, and all the bad things were with hell. And I had this idea that once you died, like all these urges and earthly things, basically like wanting to have sex, for instance, stuff like that, basically didn't exist anymore. So you didn't have to worry about that stuff when you got in heaven. And as far as hell, I wasn't really, I tried to reconcile a lot of things to fit with what I wanted to believe God was like, but a lot of ways I turned, the Bible itself wouldn't really support it too much. And so I would even go to the lengths of saying, okay, well, maybe God really did send his son down, and we tried to keep the records as best we could, but maybe some evil organization put like these bad things in the Bible to trick the non-believers. I mean, I was just going through all sorts of mental gymnastics to try and justify what I believed. It was crazy.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of mental gymnastics involved, but I feel like it's pretty easy to do when you're indoctrinated to do it. Just feels like second nature.
What did you do to stop all of the gymnastics?
So I had to stop doing mind-altering substances, for one thing. I noticed that was affecting my decision-making greatly. Especially when I'd go and read the Bible after doing said substance, and I'd try to link it in some symbolic way to help me stop doing it, and in the long run, it didn't help anything.
So you think you believe that because of substances?
Yeah, really.
Oh, I've never heard that before. That's interesting. Only when you were doing substances, or you think it kept it going?
Things can affect your brain. I mean,
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
About stuff, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've done plenty of mind-altering substances.
I was
although
wondering, what did you guys think about when it talks about Moses and the burning bush? what is that burning bush supposed to symbolize? Or is that like a literal burning bush?
I always viewed it as a literal bush.
Yeah, me too. Like an
Okay.
actual bush on
I
fire.
thought I was being a little silly about that. Yeah.
I never took any mind-altering substances until I had already found my way out of religion, or at least nothing. I got drunk a couple of times when I was still a believer, but prior to that, prior to me being an atheist, I don't think I did any. Well, that's not true. Towards the end of my time, I had some military buddies, and we dropped acid out at a beach house. But it's funny because none of that reinforced any of my views on heaven or hell or demons. It was just, I don't know, I'm probably, I guess I'm weird because I was raised with a set of views on heaven and hell and souls and God and all this stuff. And it was just, for the most part, a matter of fact. Like, what there's, oh, why didn't you question it? What is there to question?
Right.
I mean, this is a couple thousand years of tradition, and I'm standing up in a church surrounded by all these people who've been doing this longer than me, who know more than me, and they're telling me stuff. I was not empowered to be the person who could ask those questions or was even free to doubt.
Yeah. I also find it interesting that a lot of people who do psychedelics explain some kind of like spiritual experience or it triggers something when it comes to them creating some narrative around God and what God is. And I find that interesting because I have also partook in that kind of stuff, and I've never, I guess I could see how it translates that way if you really wanted to, but yeah, it's interesting, Alexander, that you were doing that while believing, because did you not think that the substances were any kind of sin to be doing, or?
Well, so for me, it was basically, just like Matt said, it was basically a fact until I came across some guys on GTA 4 in the lobby that were talking about God wasn't real, and I started questioning that, and then I went on YouTube, found Matt and Jim talking about to this Mark guy or whatever, and ever since then I was an atheist, and I had started getting on I had started smoking weed or whatever when I was like 15, so and that was more so just for the simple fact that I wanted to be on medication, but family, my parents didn't want me to be because they wanted me to go to the military, which I wasn't going to do anyways. But they didn't want to affect with that, so I couldn't get on the medication, and I was trying to find some way to alleviate my lack of good brain chemicals, I guess, or good feeling brain chemicals. I severely
you were trying to self-medicate.
Yep. Got it. That makes sense.
You figured out that it wasn't doing the job you thought it was doing in the way you thought it was doing. So good job there. And wild that somebody talking shit about God in a GTA lobby sent you to find me and Jim talking to what I suspect is the completely fake caller that called in as Mark from Stone Church.
Yeah.
What do you mean fake caller?
He wasn't Mark from Stone Church. There was a Stone Church. There is, I don't know. I definitely was a Stone Church in Austin. And he would call in claiming to be a pastor, one of the pastors on the team at Stone Church. And he was mad because teenagers, I'm going to let you go real quick, Alexander, while I tell the story, because there's no reason to bore you on that. We got a couple other callers to get to, but thank you so much. He was calling in because he was mad because teenagers on the interwebs had found me on the atheist experience, and I was being a disruption to their church because they were coming in and asking questions in Sunday school that they shouldn't be asking it. And he would call in about stuff like that. And
like consistently?
Yeah. Like he was a regular caller for a while. It'd be like, Mark from Stone Church. I think somebody's probably put together a Mark from Stone Church's greatest hits.
I'm sure they have.
It's this way the internet goes. If I can get another clip out of it, they'll do it. But as it turns out, an actual pastor from Stone Church reached out to me privately and said, we don't know who this guy is. We're definitely not having any problem of the sort that he's talking about. And I don't know which one of us said it, but I was like, one of us was saying, hey, you want to go to lunch? And the other one immediately said, yeah. And so we went to, I don't like Red Robin, but they were new in Austin at the time. They've since gone out of business here, but we went down to this Red Robin and we hung out. And of course, this pastor is a Calvinist. Was a Calvinist who doesn't accept free will. And we had a really interesting lunch with, discussions. And this is why the next time Mark from Stone Church called in, I was like, dude, we know you're not real. I've met with actual pastors from Stone Church.
I bet he was not expecting that at all. Do you think it was someone from the church?
I think it was an atheist in Austin or somebody who just looked up, find me a church in Austin to reference. Pick that one out. We used to get a lot of prank calls, and we still do. And it's hard to tell.
So you think it was like a prank call, not somebody like angry trying to be anonymous?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It was. I don't think anything about it was genuine. I think that somebody just made up a story so they could call in and hear themselves talk. Same as a lot of prank callers do.
What was the response to you saying I actually got lunch with the dude, so I know you're not him?
I honestly don't remember, but we stopped hearing from Mark. But I will say that that particular pastor, he headed out for a mission trip and was killed by an IED on behalf of his God. He was went to a foreign country where he wasn't supposed to be, proselytizing, which he wasn't supposed to be doing, killed by an IED, young guy, new bride, new child.
Oh my God.
Pastor at a church, hanging out with his atheist buddy. A few weeks later, dead.
Wow.
I don't buy into, those sorts of arguments against a God, but I can certainly understand why people do.
Right.
What kind of God has a pastor hang out with an atheist and then get killed doing his God's work a few weeks later? It's just weird.
Right. That is so bizarre. How long after you met up with him did that happen? Years or not?
No, it was months.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we went to lunch. We talked about, he was like, I'm getting ready to go on a mission trip.
Wow.
And he's like, when I get back, we can do some other stuff. And I think it was like a month or two later that I found out he was dead. I'd have to go back and look at the timeline, but it's just wild.
That's a crazy form of events going on there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it did know there were a number of good relationships that have come out of some of the fake calls. So, try not to get too down on any of it. And you can't really tell. You have to treat like I did a video and released it just the other day, but it won't be public to everybody, about this constant accusation of, some people are just too stupid to be an atheist. I'm like, you're too stupid to be a skeptic or humanist, clearly, because
right.
Well, I don't get that.
Right. I get really frustrated because sometimes I'll have interactions with people who, grew up fundamentalists or young earth creationists, and they'll say stuff like dinosaurs aren't real, whatever. And I always have people saying, this person's a troll. There's no way they believe that. I'm like, yes, there's a way. Like, yeah, sure, there are trolls, but there's many more people than you think there are that believe this stuff. And I don't think a lot of people also realize how enmeshed the QAnon conspiracy theories and Christianity has gotten. So it's, gotten a lot worse in the recent years. And I just don't think people are aware of how that's developed in the past 6 years.
My ex-wife, Beth, did a talk at one of the atheist conventions we went to. And it was called, Yes, We Really Did Believe That, because she keeps running into like third and fourth generation atheists or people who figured out that it was all bullshit when they were 5 and then smugly decided to dismiss everybody else who didn't. And they're like, nobody really believes there was a talking snake or a talking donkey. And so Beth put together a lecture that was like, yeah, There really are. This isn't just,
Right.
you know, and it's not even that wild, because if you think there's a God that can do pretty much anything that is possible, a talking snake becomes nothing.
Right. Why wouldn't you believe? You could believe anything if you believe there's a God who can do anything.
A
That's that
voice coming out
simple.
of a burning bush. The only thing to ask about there is, why was there a burning bush at all? The voice could have just come out of the bush or just out of the
Right.
air.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
this superfluous, and it's one of the things we talked about in your video. There's, the streets of gold and mansions, all these things that are tied to humans'
Material.
conceptions of good or value or whatever else.
Right. Right. And for the people who always say, I hear that a lot too, that Christians are pretending to believe X, Y, and Z. I feel like that's also not fair to anyone you have a conversation. Oh, can you hear those sirens? Sorry.
I heard a siren, yeah.
All right. I feel like it's not fair to people you're having conversations with to just be like, you don't really believe that, or you're lying, to every single religious person you come across. And especially, I don't really know how people say that to ex-Christian people who make content, because obviously they changed their mind and they really believed it. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it's frustrating when people are like, don't platform these people. They're just trolls. I'm like, these are the people running our country, actually. I'm not sure if you knew that. But they have like the highest platform possible.
Well, we got some more callers queued up. There was somebody wanting to know how to ground, an agnostic who wanted to know how to ground morality without God. If you feel like calling back, just be prepared to answer this. What the fuck do you mean by grounding morality? I'm not aware that, if you're talking about the default foundations, mine are pretty much axiomatic, and I don't know of any solution to that behind that. But we got a theist calling, and theists always got a topic queue. So Jason, he pronouns are him, is a theist who says, as a gay man, I believe there's a higher power, which I call God, but I don't go to church or identify with a denomination. I believe that hell's a state of being where you're miserable and uncomfortable, and heaven's a place where you're at peace. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good.
All right.
What would send you to hell and heaven? Like, what's this higher power, and how do you get to heaven or hell?
Well, I first want to share that I was raised as a Christian through the Church of Christ. And in the Church of Christ, they aren't super against LGBT, but I talked with one of the pastors, one of the higher up people, and they said that I was going to hell, and that kind of ruined it for me, but not entirely to the fact that there isn't a higher power. I haven't actually really thought about it as much as I have watching you guys. But I think that anybody that would have, like, if you think on a higher level, if you create something, you're not going to want to burn it or get rid of it, right? And I think
Maybe,
that
I
God,
guess, unless you're evil, maybe you'd want to burn it.
I can think of plenty of reasons and plenty of things that I have created that I've burned.
Oh yeah,
and for good reason.
Yeah, there's that.
That's it.
I remember this one time I rolled a fatty and I burnt the hell out of it. But no, I get what you're saying. I don't know that that's a safe assumption.
Like, you would be proud of it, you know?
Wait, so then why do you still believe in hell?
Yeah.
So the hell that I believe is not necessarily like burning and like torture. What I believe is that it's a state of mind. I feel that
just in like humans, like in the human life is what you're saying, or in an afterlife?
Yeah, just like an afterlife. It's like a, I guess my beliefs would more be reincarnation type thing. But sorry, I'm actually really anxious. I've never done this before. But I don't know. I just don't feel like.
Are you really anxious because you know I'm getting ready to ask you what reason you have to believe any of this other than I wish it were true?
Other than my past. Honestly, I don't have any reason to believe it, but I think it's just what I was taught, what I was ingrained into my mind. Honestly, listening to you guys has opened my eyes up quite a lot.
Well,
Okay.
I'll take a risk and attempt to potentially open them some more. Stop believing things that you admit you don't have a good reason to believe. Instead, just go with I don't know and look for a good reason to have something beyond I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I have no idea what's going to happen. First of all, I think the idea of the soul and an afterlife are the most obviously false and dead concepts in all of theology. Everything that we know about the brain and our personality, and that the mind is a product of the brain, that we can physically alter a brain and change the personality, the memory, literally everything about that we would identify that makes you as a distinct thinking being is subject to change by physically manipulating your brain, to the point where if you go watch V.S. Ramachandra did a talk about a split brain patient where because of severe seizures, they severed the corpus callosum. And what you end up with in that situation are two independent personalities residing in one brain, where one of them, because on one side of the brain is able to control speech, and the other one has to communicate in another fashion. And in these cases, one of those personalities believed in a God, and the other personality in the same brain didn't. People have accidents all the time that cause amnesia, perhaps not as much as you might see in the soap operas, but there are physical damage that changes everything about your brain, can turn you into an asshole or change you from being an asshole. If that's the case, what part of me do we have any reason to think survives? And if my brain gets injured and I was an atheist steering my own ship and I become a Christian, did I really become convinced of the truth of a God? Am I right? And are the sins of the atheist me attributed to the Christian me or the Hindu me? And what if I was a Christian and I was saved? I was redeemed by the blood of the Lamb and destined to spend eternity with the Father. And then I get hit on the head and it turned me into a complete asshole atheist. Is there two souls in me now, and one of the souls is going to go to heaven and the other? Please make it make sense, because there is nothing about the concept of the soul that has any decent evidence to support it or that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I do appreciate that. Honestly, I do thank you guys for being like an advocate for LGBT, because it's very hard these days for us.
Yeah, that is another thing. I mean, maybe this is just because you're convinced God is real, but I'm guessing it's really hard to be part of a community that doesn't accept you, right?
Yeah, totally. That's why I stopped going to church, and then just made it, just myself, because it was really uncomfortable and honestly scary.
Yeah, and so what's the last thing you're holding on to telling you that God is probably real for you? Is there like a single thing that is convincing you, or?
Honestly, I think it's just like that last bit of like, oh, somebody out there might care for you. I'm also like the whole scared of dying type thing, where like maybe there's nothing after, but like Matt said, I think it's just the fact that I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So do you feel like nihilism is too much?
Yeah.
Do you feel like nihilism is too much? I said, do you think nihilism is too much for you to like look into, and it's really scary?
Yeah, I think so. But I do appreciate your guys' point of. I'm glad that I did call. I think I have a lot to think about, and especially with the chat. bringing up things that I can look into.
Oh.
Um,
If the chat says good things, you can thank them. And if they say terrible things, ignore them because...
Yeah. No, everybody's been really nice. I appreciate it.
Also, Jason, I want to
yeah.
recommend a book called The Sunny Nihilist if you're ever interested in reading that. It gave me a lot of comfort when I was struggling with nihilism because that is something I've also struggled with. Sometimes I view it as positive, sometimes I see it as negative, but that book helped me a lot. So if you're interested, you should read that.
Okay.
It's an incredibly common struggle.
Nihilist?
Say it again?
You said The Sunny Nihilist?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll look into that, actually. I do like reading, so.
Awesome.
Cool.
Don't beat up on yourself too much, Jason. There's tons of people. I'm the weird one. I didn't really struggle with nihilism. I didn't really struggle with the notion of annihilation at all. It was like, I kind of went the Mark Twain route, well, even though we can't prove Mark Twain said this, but he's attributed with the quote of, I was dead for 1 billion years before I was born and it never bothered me one bit. Why should it bother me the next time? There's a lot of real problems and real things to solve that we know are problems, and we potentially know some ways to solve them. And I'd like to focus on those. If there's some afterlife, right now I don't have any reason to think there is. I have good reason to think there's not.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I'm wrong about it, I still have an opportunity to change my mind. If it turns out I die, I know that I can stand up in whatever afterlife and be confident and honest when I say, I evaluated these claims and found the evidence lacking. I can't do anything to stop some God from punishing me or whatever, but maybe if there is some afterlife, maybe it rewards intellectual honesty and rigor.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Just like living good so that you have a way to explain that you have been living good when you die. So you don't have anything to worry about, is what you're saying?
Yeah, if there's a good God, he'll understand.
keep looking. Yeah. If there's a good God, they'll understand. And if there's not, and it turns out there's an evil God, fuck them.
Bye.
What are you going to do?
Yeah,
I can't.
You can't really do
it's
anything,
like,
right?
hey, if we have a king, it could be a good king or a bad king. I think all of them are bad in some regard because I'm opposed to the concept of kings. But you got what you got. And if you walk around pretending that the leader isn't what he is, you're already just going to make bad decisions. And in this case, I think the leader is a fictional construct, most likely, created by people that weren't equipped, as many of us still aren't, to answer the difficult questions and solve the things that we struggle with, like nihilism.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, I'll let you go to the next caller, and thank you so much. I hope you have a great birthday.
I had a great birthday. Thank you so much. Yeah, Arden took me out to my favorite sushi place. I used to hate sushi, and this place made me love it. And Arden used to hate sushi, and this place made her love it. You should have seen her face last night.
So you discovered it together?
Yeah. I'd been eating it for many years before she and I went for the first time, but yeah, you should have seen her face last night. She was like, whoa, this is heaven, and little food gasms.
I might have to ask you guys then what to get, because I don't really like sushi, and I feel like I never know what to. Yeah, I feel like I never know what to get. But
come to Austin, we will take you to Musashino, and at least if you don't like it there, we will be like, yeah,
you know for a fact.
Not for you. Awesome. We've got a theist calling. Larry is calling. Ooh, is that Mississippi?
I think so.
I guess so. Pronouns are he, him. Larry's a theist who says, I can prove God exists if Matt doesn't rudely interrupt me again. Okay. I'll make you a deal. Taylor and I haven't done a show together. And I have seen Taylor talk about this stuff. So I'll make you a deal, Larry. Don't mention my name. Don't whine. And I won't interrupt until I absolutely cannot bear to continue sitting here. And then you'll have your opportunity to prove God. But you have to be respectful, allow Taylor to interrupt, and answer her questions. Deal? Larry?
Larry, you there?
It's
Is
really
that a no
easy.
deal?
It's hard to interrupt if you don't start talking, Larry.
Damn.
Is your phone muted? Has the call screener muted you? Are we anticipating some?
Damn, Larry. Where'd you go?
Larry, I'm literally here giving you the best deal you've ever been offered, despite the fact that you called in with some. All right. I'm going to put Larry back in the queue.
Okay.
Larry, if you hear this, figure out what's going on with your phone or whatever. We'll take you again and I'll make you the same deal. In the meantime, Seth is a theist that is calling from Tennessee and who wants to explain why God is not hiding. Hey, Seth, how are you?
Howdy. So I'm doing all right. So I've got like a very wide range of proofs, but I suppose it really depends on what you're considering evidence, because like how flat earthers can just be like, you can't prove gravity. How does a rock falling prove that the moon makes the tides, right? We're talking about a higher order sort of truth here. So
it's actually pretty. It's actually pretty easy to give a demonstration of gravity and to calculate it and show the extent to which the moon impacts the tides. I accept evidence. I have no idea what evidence would convince me that a God exists, but my view is that if there is a God, that God knows exactly what should convince me, and that God should be capable of producing it, and that hasn't happened yet. So either that God doesn't exist, or he doesn't want me to know he exists yet. So now we get to see if Seth is going to defend the God that actually wants us to know he exists. So all you need to do is present the argument that you think should convince us, and we'll either be convinced or explain why we're not.
All right. So the first proof is on the physical standard, right? Like the actual physics, cosmology of it, the Big Bang Theory. It's all leading back to a singular point of space and time, right? And so this is all about building the proofs to build confidence in the theory, because this is how theories work. So we can set up a whole bunch of tests for falsification and say, well, if it doesn't work exactly this way, then the theory is probably false, right?
Well, if it's not a theory,
on a lot of these,
so you build a theory by beginning with. It's not a theory. A scientific theory is an hypothesis that is falsifiable, that has undergone testing and supporting of evidence, et cetera, and building up to a theory. But yeah, falsifiability is a key aspect. Are you saying that you have a falsifiable argument for God?
No, I have a hypothesis that's based on eclectic evidence. It's coming from all of these different established theories, right?
Is your hypothesis falsifiable?
We have proofs of these lower order domains.
No. Is your hypothesis, Seth,
that individually cannot, which is something we should expect from a higher order.
Can Seth not fucking hear me? Seth, is your hypothesis falsifiable?
Yes.
Okay. So what is your hypothesis and how would you falsify it?
The hypothesis is that God is real and Jesus establishes a moral divine law, right? A divine truth. Like that right there is the simplicity of something like the law of gravity, which proves to us that God exists.
How do we know it comes from God and you're just not randomly attributing it to God? How is there a way for us to know? But I also wanted to ask why God wouldn't make it more obvious. Why is it a guessing game?
Well, because he's not going to force us to do things we don't want to do.
I would still have my free will, would I not? I'm in a relationship with someone I know exists. Does that take away my free will?
I mean, we're still have free will to deny that the earth is round. Flat earthers do all that all the time. How does a God revealing himself, for example, Seth, do you also believe there's a devil?
Yes.
And the devil absolutely knows that God exists and is more powerful and has been in his presence, right?
Yes.
And yet the devil was able to rebel, right?
Yes.
So God revealing himself directly does not in any way inhibit someone's free will to rebel, does it?
No.
Cool. So continue, because I still
yeah.
want to know how you can falsify this, but Taylor's asked a good question, so let's get that one.
So why wouldn't he
So-
make it more obvious? And he did for some. So even if like what you're saying about free will is true, then Jesus
Because-
coming down and doing miracles, he would have taken the free will away from everybody he proved himself to. So if he can do that for some, why can't he do it for everybody and give everybody a fair chance?
Everyone does get a fair chance.
No, I haven't had miracles performed in front of me by some random person saying they're God's son.
You probably haven't. Sorry.
Huh?
Why don't we
Continue.
all get a Damascus Road experience?
Well, because it doesn't match your expectations, right? A lot of
Oh,
people.
no, it
grow
does.
up,
I
even
literally
theists,
just told you that it
flat
does.
earthers especially.
I absolutely
And what I see with a lot of-
I absolutely expect that a fair God would not play favorites and give Paul or Saul a Damascus Road experience to justify his existence in a way that none of the rest of us are privy to. I absolutely think that that is what a fair God would do. So why are you saying it doesn't match my expectations when I'm literally telling you I expect it?
Well, because you're basing the expectations for your perception of the miracle upon the eyewitness testimony of someone who drank things like Greek wine, which is a potent hallucinogen and needs to be watered down, right? Like this gets
No,
into a whole
I'm not.
my
I'm not.
idea of
I'm sorry, Seth.
right, the
Seth.
separation
Seth.
of magic from
Seth.
truth.
Seth. I'm not relying on anything. Are you saying that Saul did not have an experience with Jesus?
I'm saying that Jesus embodied a divine message, and that
Okay.
message is true.
So
regardless of how
now you're
humans
being
perceive
dishonest.
it,
Now you're being
distorted, and
dishonest because you're trying to go back to what your original claim is while ignoring the questions we have about it. And when Taylor challenges you on this, and when I've challenged you on it, you just shift focus. So since Taylor's
I'm
question was,
saying
why
that
do I'm sorry,
miracles
Seth. I'm
are
I'm
not
sorry,
magic.
Seth. I know it's difficult, but I'm still talking and I talk a lot. Taylor asked, why doesn't God just make it obvious? And your answer was because he wants us to have the free will to reject it. But then when we showed you that him making it obvious doesn't in any way violate free will, you ignored that and then talked about what the expectations were. And I was like, if in fact Saul had a Damascus Road experience, why can't we all have that? And you started mentioning drugs. And then when I pushed you back on that, you said, no, I'm saying Jesus serves as a moral foundation. Prove it.
Okay, so truth has three different qualities. One, it is simple. It makes the minimal amount of necessary assumptions. It is self-consistent, and it is externally validated. Now, here's the thing about Jesus' truth. If Jesus' truth supersedes the truth of science-level domains, such as we'd see in evolution, then there are patterns in human behavior which the transmission of Jesus' teachings should also override, right?
None of that made any sense or was demonstrably true. Truth isn't necessarily simple. Truth isn't necessarily self-consistent. Truth is that which comports reliably to reality. I don't know that truth is necessarily externally validated because I don't know how you can validate externally that I'm hungry right now. However, then you said, you then said, if Jesus' truth supersedes science, then there are patterns of human behavior, whatever that it should show up in. I am not aware that anything about Jesus supersedes science. So why don't we start there? What about Jesus supersedes science, and how can we know that?
So, according to evolution, the species which is most fit, the iteration of that species which is most fit for the environment should succeed in that environment, right?
No,
The
that's
gene
not what
pool
evolution
become
says,
more
but go ahead, keep
homogeneous
going.
to the species, which survives longer and reproduces more. Right.
So evolution,
that
Seth, evolution by means of natural selection is an explanation for the diversity of life. And it doesn't say that the ones that are most suited will survive. It says the ones that are least suited are least likely to survive. More often than not, evolution is something where the changing environment selects against specific criteria, and the rest is just change that is innocuous. But how does Jesus supersede evolution?
You see, you're using a partial truth because that completely
I'm sorry,
ignores
Seth.
every observation we have about invasive
Seth, not only am I
species
not
which
using partial
dominate
truth,
global population.
Seth, not only am I not using partial truth, I asked you a question. How does Jesus supersede evolution?
But you're not agreeing on the definitions and observations of evolution. You're having to deny reality in order to uphold the position that
I'm sorry, Seth. I'm sorry, Seth, but I'm now convinced that you're not an honest interlocutor. But instead of dropping you like a hot rock for accusing me of lying when I'm the one that here is asking questions that you're avoiding and telling the truth, I'm willing to give you the same deal that I'm willing to give Larry, which is I'll stop talking because it's clear you're not going to have an honest conversation with me. Maybe I'm the bad guy here. I'll back off, but I'm not misrepresenting science. I'd still like for you to demonstrate how Jesus supersedes anything in science. I'm not even convinced necessarily that Jesus existed, but I have no problem with the notion that he did. I don't have any reason to think that Jesus is magic or divine or that there's anything about Jesus that supersedes anything, not even the sticks of wood that he was supposedly crucified on. So instead of deflecting and pretending like I'm misrepresenting the science, when I'm the guy that's been teaching this stuff for years, and our network is full of experts that will back me up on what evolution is, you're the one that's denying evolution and claiming that Jesus supersedes it. So I will now take a back seat, and you can explain why you think God is not hiding in whatever Taylor wants to put up with.
Seth, let's just pretend that what you're saying about evolution is true. Can you get to the point that you were trying to get to?
Yeah, so with how evolution shows how competition goes and how the evolution of species and behaviors goes, then when it comes to stuff like altruism, there's a theory of evolved altruism, and we can see in cultures that don't adhere to what we consider a secular moral truth, equal rights, stuff like that, that there's a pattern of behavior which evolution suggests would be most fit for the environment, right? Like we see it in Islam, we see it with the Huns, Mongols. But
I'm confused. Are you
Christianity
saying
comes into play, we
are you
see
saying because one second, I want to make sure, Seth, hold on one second. I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. Are you in this conversation, are you saying that our morality and I don't know, stuff like that has evolved over time with evolution, so it doesn't make sense why there's different people with different morality systems because it's not as good as other people's morality system?
It doesn't make sense if evolution is true as to why the Viking culture did not overtake the Christian Roman culture when it was evolutionarily had the advantage, right?
How do you know? How do you even? Let's pretend that's true. How do you even know? How do you even know they had the advantage? Like, what are you basing that off of?
Because they were sacking Christianized Rome all the way up until the point that they got bored of it and settled down as farmers and adopted the Christian faith and became mercantile powers. That's history.
Okay. Let's pretend that's true. I have no idea. But doesn't that mean that they gave up, so they're not the superior type of person? Right? According to you?
Give up.
You just said they got bored, right? And gave up?
There was nothing to give up. They didn't lose anything, right? They just stopped attacking. They just
Okay.
stopped attacking, settled down,
I
and
don't
adopted
I don't
Christian faith.
understand.
know
I
said
don't
gay, but
understand.
just exploit religion. Sorry.
I don't understand how there are different society, like different groups of people who live different ways, and you think that proves that God exists. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Why
Do you
did
think there's not going to be
they
any
adopt the Christian faith
diversity
if
at all
they
in
had
human
an
beings?
evolutionary
Wait, hold on, Seth.
advantage?
You don't think there's going to be any diversity in human beings at all? It doesn't make sense to you that there's diversity at all?
Yeah, no. Why would there be? Why would there be communication at all without God?
What? Because we're a species and we have to communicate with each other to survive.
We have to compete to survive.
What? No, we don't. We
What?
don't have to. Am I competing right now to survive? Right now, am I competing to survive? I'm not aware of it. If so, where am I competing?
Right here between me, like we're competing ideologically.
I'm not competing with you,
As a
Seth.
person versus person conflict.
Does this affect my survival? This conversation?
You're talking about on the survival level, then you'd be competing on the reproductive aspect, wouldn't you?
What are you talking about? What do you mean? What does that mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? That's
Are you
what
talking about surviving through
evolution is all
children,
about.
or
It's
what are you
about
saying?
reproductive fitness. It's about whose offspring are most likely to survive.
It's almost like you don't live in modern day society. It feels like you're not living in modern day society by the way you're speaking.
That's literally evolutionary theory. It's about which
Seth,
most,
are you
best
aware we're not
reproductive
living in a society where everyone's fighting to survive, like outbreed other people and fighting to survive with only like natural resources and something? Like, look at the world we live in. I don't understand what you're saying. We have modern
Seth has
technology and things that make your life easier every single day.
Seth has the Tennessee public school understanding of evolution, where it's merely survival of the fittest, and whatever is stronger in whatever myopic understanding Seth has is the one that's most fit. Seth doesn't. I'm sorry. I'm still talking. I'm still talking, Seth. I'm literally still talking. I will mute you, and nobody will hear you. Let me finish talking. Seth doesn't I'm sorry.
You're already
Seth.
trying to do that. What?
Yeah, I am going to mute you, so you're muted now. Nobody can hear you. Let me finish. Seth doesn't understand that game theory shows that cooperation is often the best strategy, and that in a complex world, you, Seth, are not qualified to determine what fitness is. And maybe nobody is, because there are factors that we are unaware of. Whatever the conditions are going to determine the likelihood, not the guarantee, that a particular individual is going to have offspring. I may have the best strategy for reproducing, but am physically incapable of reproducing. The person next to me may have a terrible strategy for reproducing, but has the greatest sperm that have ever lived and manages to knock up the entire village. And apart from them spreading their seed, they're useless. But maybe I'm the one that keeps their kids alive and protects the species. Maybe I'm the one that cures cancer. You have such a very, very narrow view of this, and a fundamental misunderstanding about what evolution is, because you've been lied to by your church and your schools. As I pointed out, evolution isn't saying, ooh, you strong, you survive. There's no decision making. Whatever happens, happens. There are individuals and groups that have qualities that are better for fitness in certain areas at certain times, and cooperative behavior is one of them. You can't just go look at why did the Vikings stop doing this and become Christian? I don't know. Maybe a particularly stupid leader who didn't understand that they had a particular advantage fell in love with somebody who professed Christianity. That got them to convert, and then they dictated that all of their subjects needed to be Christian. It wouldn't be the first time something like that happened, but in any case, at no point does evolution say that the Christian model, which there isn't the Christian model, or the Muslim model, which there isn't the Muslim model, is preferable for survival. You have a fundamental misunderstanding of science and game theory to even make anything remotely like that. But I'm still waiting for you to demonstrate how your hypothesis is falsifiable. I'm almost ready to believe that you don't even know what falsifiable means, but how would you falsify your proposition?
Okay, so I love that you brought up game theory, because according to game theory in random chance, let's say you hook up a bunch of paper clips together.
Hey, Seth. So first of all, I didn't ask you about game theory, nor is what you're talking about game theory. I asked you how you falsify your hypothesis. I'm going to unmute you again. I'd like you to answer how you can falsify your hypothesis.
When you try.
Were you talking that whole time, Seth?
Look.
Seth, were you talking that whole time? Well, I'm going to mute you again. I'm sorry this is so difficult for you. I really am, because I'm sure we could all benefit from you actually listening instead of talking, and then talking in a way that is a response to whatever we've asked. I need you, when I unmute you, nobody can hear you right now. I need you, when I unmute you, to explain how you propose to falsify your hypothesis. I don't need you to tell me how little you understand game theory by talking about putting together a bunch of paper clips. That's not anything to do with game theory. But I need you to tell me how you would falsify your hypothesis. Let's welcome Seth back.
Probability. That is literally game theory. That's probability. That is how evolution would work if it were random chance. You are choosing to ignore evidence. Flat Earth mindset. What is it?
Seth, I'm sorry. I'm going to wait for the producer to let me know that they can no longer see your volume at all. That way I know you're done talking.
That's not how it works when you mute him in Colin's studio.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then. I'm going to bring Seth back, and if Seth is already talking when I unclick this, then I'll know that Seth hasn't been listening or paying any attention and is nowhere near presenting a falsification and is now just being rude to the other theistic callers that are on hold. And if that's the case, then I'll just drop Seth and we'll go on to one of the other theistic callers that have been on hold for a while. So Seth, how do you falsify your hypothesis?
Well, for one, I set epistemistic standards. As I said, consistency, internal consistency, right? Okay, and so if we're talking about Jesus being the embodiment of a divine message that can set us in alignment with this higher order truth, right? And these are all real things, regardless of whether you like them or not. Then we should look at in the beginning, right? That's the first description we have of God. He does something. And lo and behold, not only do we have an in the beginning where if we trace the accelerations back, we get to a point where time stops. We cannot measure time anymore, right? Okay, and so in this beginning, there is everything. It's literally all mass energy, right?
Seth?
And it's not.
I feel like you're just saying words to say them.
Right? That is falsification.
Okay. Seth,
it could say something actually came from nothing, but this isn't the case.
No, Seth. So Seth. So first of all, epistemistic isn't a fucking word. And second of all, falsification is the process by one which would be able to, in principle, demonstrate that a hypothesis is false. When I ask you how to falsify things, what would falsify things, you don't get to say, these things are real, whether you like them or not. No, sir, you need to demonstrate that what you're talking about is actually real. Then you look at the beginning. God does something in the beginning. I have no evidence that what the Bible says about the beginning is, in fact, anything to do with the beginning. And Big Bang cosmology does not necessarily claim that the universe began. It describes the expansion of the universe. And it may not make sense to talk about time prior, but it might. We simply don't know. We don't have any way to investigate it. And to top it all off, are you ready for this, Seth? To top it all off, none of that has anything to do with falsifying your hypothesis. The fact that you're now expecting us to disprove Genesis is bizarre. But you know what I'll do? I'll disprove Genesis right now. Genesis lists an order of events. Genesis chapter 1 lists a specific order of creation events, which we know from science are not accurate. The account in Genesis 1 lists a beginning, a primitive earth in darkness enshrouded by heavy gases and water, then light, then an expanse or atmosphere, then large areas of dry land, then land plants, then the sun, the moon, and the stars. Weird that we had light before that. And that's when the seasons begin. And number 8 is sea monsters and flying creatures, followed by wild and tame beasts and mammals, followed and last by, is number 10 by man. But the actual order is a beginning. Ooh, that one lined up. Then light, because we're talking about cosmic microwave background radiation, not a primitive Earth. Then the sun and stars. So that's number 3 in what actually happened when that's number 7 in Genesis. Then you get a primitive Earth, moon, and atmosphere, because science lets us know that things like the Earth are most likely formed from the accretion disk of suns, stars forming solar systems. Then you get dry land, then you get sea creatures, then you get land plants. And it's funny that your Bible has land plants before there's a fucking sun. And then you get land creatures, flying creatures, and then eventually mammals. So the order in Genesis is in conflict with the findings of science. So let me ask you this. Is science wrong, or is Genesis wrong about the order of events? That's all I need to know. We'll let you back in here. Which one's wrong?
First off, you're wrong, because in order to say that it's not a signal for the beginning of time, you would have to remove acceleration from the equation, because...
Okay, Seth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that whatever's wrong with your brain is preventing you from actually honestly engaging. I've asked one question. It's the only question I want you to answer. When I unmute you in a minute, nobody can hear you right now. When I unmute you, you will either answer that question and we will try to continue a conversation, or you will fail to answer that question and I will hang up on you like a bad habit and go on to the theists who have been patiently waiting while you refuse to honestly address what I'm asking. So I read the order of events from Genesis and the order of events according to science. They are incompatible. They are in conflict. The findings of science are in conflict with Genesis. And I need you to know, I need you to tell me, is science wrong? Is Genesis wrong? Are they both wrong? That's the question. Is science wrong? Is Genesis wrong? Are they both wrong? Please. Welcome back.
Show me your math. Show me your math. Show me your math.
Okay. Sorry that didn't work out for you, Seth. My math is you were on for 26 minutes and 49 seconds, and that was 26 minutes too long. That's my math.
I am not sure he ever knew he was muted. I think he was just consistently talking and not paying attention at all.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Okay. Here we go. This is going to be we've got Larry here. I think it's Larry from Mississippi, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Awesome.
sir. I'm actually from Denver, but I'm currently in Mississippi.
Sure. Did you hear? Were you able to hear the deal that I offered you earlier?
I did. I heard everything. Yeah. I don't know why you guys couldn't hear me. I tried talking and everything, but yeah, I'm glad you can hear me now.
Are you good with that deal? And by the way, I should ask Taylor, are you fine with that deal?
Yeah. Sounds like a good deal.
Sweet. Then I will sit here.
So,
hang on. I will sit here quietly. I'm going to mute myself and I'll remain that way. Hopefully for the entirety of the call so that you don't have to pretend that I rudely interrupted you. But we'll see, because it's possible
no,
I
you
might.
did before, but
I'm sorry.
no, I just
Larry, part of the
yes, sir.
agreement is that you're not going to whine about the past. I'm giving you a new
I'm
break.
not whining.
You are literally whining
No.
about the fucking
I'm
past,
correcting.
Larry.
No,
Larry,
no, I was
no,
correcting
you're
you.
literally
No.
fucking whining about the past. You don't get to correct me.
There was
I
no
interrupt.
whining.
All right,
Okay.
I'm going to mute you because I can't even get the fucking deal out with you being monumentally assholish. You say I rudely interrupted you. I'm hosting a show here, and I have theists on hold, and I have atheists and agnostics and other people on hold. I have a co-host. We need to get clarity. And that means we need to interrupt people in order to get them to better define their terms, get them to agree with things, get them to clarify things that aren't well understood, and to prevent them from going a 5-minute rant or stream of consciousness thing about how they're the Star Destroyer super lord, or how it's all about the mathematics of this, and refusing to answer the questions that were asked. You're welcome to your opinion that I rudely interrupted you. I do not give the slightest fuck what your opinion is. I never have, and I never will. But I've offered you the opportunity to not have to whine about what you think you were wronged in the past in the situation. You've now agreed to it. So I'm going to mute myself despite all of my best judgment because I like Taylor and I trust Taylor.
Larry, we're going to have a good conversation. Just
It's gonna
have
go
a
great.
conversation.
Just keep my fucking name out of your mouth and we'll be fine. Here we go.
So,
Appreciate it.
go ahead, Larry.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm very happy to answer all of your questions, and I would like the opportunity to be able to give Matt the best birthday gift he's ever had, because I think I have
I'm sorry,
some
didn't I
information
just
that's gonna
tell
be
you to
better than
keep
what
my
he's heard.
fucking name out of your fucking mouth? Didn't I just tell you that?
Oh my God.
You can't even
Can I just
abide
talk the way
by
I wanna
you can't
talk?
even
Can we have a
abide
nice
by the
conversation
agreed
instead
upon
of you being so
rules.
rude?
You can't even abide by the agreed upon rules for the first 30 seconds. Stop whining about the past. Keep my name out of your mouth.
I want to be
and
able to talk the way I
talk
want
to
to talk.
Taylor. Oh my
I'll
God. All
answer
right.
questions, but I want to.
Here we go. I'm going to mute you.
Larry, we can have a conversation without talking about Matt.
Yes.
It's very simple. Let's just do it.
I'm going to mute again. I'm going to unmute Larry. If he mentions me, I'm just going to ignore it. So don't even think you can goad me into this, Larry. Just have the fucking conversation. Please, I'm begging you.
Hey, Taylor.
Hey. How
All
do you
right.
want to prove
So,
to me God
where do you
exists,
wanna
right?
start?
That's why you were calling?
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways that you can prove that God exists. It's different than what you've heard from a lot of callers before, but I am
Okay.
aware that your other host that's on the show had a best friend who was dying. And the reason why I think Matt became so upset about this was because his friend
What?
continued to want to do these meditative practices. And meditative practices is the way to be able to experience something called the universal consciousness. I have found it. I can teach you how to do it. I can
Wait,
teach
hold on,
everybody in the
hold on.
world how to do it.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck we're talking about. What
Neither do I.
meditative? What are we talking about?
As far as I can tell, he's absolutely lying. I don't have a friend that was dying and
lying.
engaged in meditative practices. Who are you talking about?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Matt, I watched some of your videos before, and Matt, I want
I'm
to tell
sorry.
you, I loved everything you were saying. I'm not
I'm
an
sorry.
enemy of you. I
I'm
love
sorry,
what
you
say.
fucking lying, delusional piece of shit. Nothing like that ever happened. Who are you talking about? Give me the name or I'm hanging up.
Okay, I heard you on one of your videos before. It was
Give me the
something I watched
fucking
shortly after
name or
watching your
I'm
Jordan
hanging
Peterson.
up.
I don't know.
Give me.
I will
I'm
tell you what
banning
I
you
heard
from the
you saying
show.
about
I am
him. I
banning
don't know the
you.
guy's
I
name.
am
You were
banning
saying
you.
him.
I am banning you from the show by your number.
Because you know there's a
I'm
way.
taking your number down. You win, Larry. You win. Despite all of my efforts to give you every opportunity to finally fucking be honest, you decided to not take my name out of your mouth and to flat out lie in a way that you knew had to draw me in. I had no friend that was trying to engage in meditative practice. And even if I did, it wouldn't fucking bother me. I don't have a problem with meditation. You are a dishonest, lying, fraudulent caller who's called in 6 fucking times to do nothing but lie and try to piss me off. You don't deserve anyone's attention. I have banned your number. You will need to get a new fucking phone or call in from some other number if you want to talk to anyone on the network. Larry?
Such a bizarre
This is how I get a bad reputation because somebody's like, man, it was rude to me. Okay, I'll stay out of it. You could have called another show. You could have done anything. But no, you've got to come in and flat out lie. Matt doesn't want me to say the secret that I'm going to say because he had a friend who was trying to do What the fuck are you even talking about?
Nobody knows.
I also love the meditation argument because I meditate regularly and I still haven't experienced God, still an atheist.
Yeah.
Weird.
I'm glad I'm living rent free in your head, Larry, but the version of me that's in your head doesn't match the reality of me. And neither evidently does your ability to demonstrate that a God exists. The only thing you're able to demonstrate is that you are incapable of being honest and taking advantage of something. So whatever God you think you're repping should be absolutely ashamed that you blew an opportunity to speak to thousands of people and you couldn't get over your petty little bitterness about, I don't know, me not letting you get away with your lying last time. Anyway, now that we're done being rude to this theist, let's get Joe in. Joe's calling from Ireland. I appreciate you sitting there and wading through all of that nonsense, Joe. You're saying, is it wrong to accept that theism is unfalsifiable and still be a believer? How you doing?
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there's a bit of delay.
Yeah. It's obnoxious.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify before we begin, if it's okay, that I agree with like most, if not all, of your scientific claims. And I don't really have any expert knowledge on the particulars of those claims, of course, but like I agree with them from my limited knowledge. I wanted to say that your claim that God is hiding is also not particularly offensive to me. I've never really engaged with that, but if it's okay, I'd like to have like a more epistemology discussion more around epistemology and see if it's just okay if I define a couple of terms first. Would that be okay with you?
Sure. Let me just clarify a couple of things. The prompt on the show that says, will God stop hiding, is basically just a recognition that one of the strongest arguments against the existence of various gods are the arguments from divine hiddenness, that no God presents itself in the way we would expect if the claims about that God were true. I don't think there's a God that is hiding because I don't believe there is a God. It's basically a reductio. And I'm happy to talk about epistemology, just not epistemistic. But your question that you called in about, I'm not aware of how one can be rationally justified in believing something that you recognize as unfalsifiable. So that's just to answer the question you had, but go ahead and define whatever terms, and Taylor and I will do our best to engage honestly with you.
Yeah, I'll see if you guys like agree to these terms as well. So I'd like your feedback. Obviously, if you don't agree with them, feel free to tell me so, and we'll redefine in whatever way we need to. But I suppose I was an atheist from the age of 16 to 24, 25, and I completely am on board with the fact that if a claim can be falsified and it is falsified, then we should like acknowledge that evidence, right? So, like for example, I would have a very easy time answering your question with Seth on Genesis, where I just say, okay, well, Genesis is wrong, right? Like I don't feel like that's a difficult thing to do. Now, in spite of that, I was raised in the Catholic culture of Ireland, and I suppose I've had certain morals and beliefs since I was very young, which are reinforced by that kind of culture. And what I was trying to look into the moral discussion of like moral objectivity for a long time, and I couldn't really find anything. And I suppose I was frustrated with not being able to find anything. So while my reversion to Christianity isn't, it's not based on evidence, to be honest with you, and it's not particularly rational. And I'm aware that it's unfalsifiable because we can't provide evidence of it. But it's strictly a faith claim of like saying like, well, these stories make sense to me, and I'm willing to like engage with Pascal's wager. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I suppose I did a fairly poor job of defining terms there, but I'm curious what you think of that.
Taylor?
I feel like I was getting lost in what you were saying. Is this in relation to your original question or no?
It's like you shifted from falsifiability to whether or not there's an objective morality, and then you said your reversion to Christianity isn't based on evidence and isn't rational, but you didn't quite finish the thought. And so are you saying that you stopped being an atheist, not because you became convinced of the truth of Christianity, but because you saw some appeal in the utility of Christianity?
Oh, yeah, I would say that's part of it, yeah. The appeal to... Okay, so I watched your debate with Jordan Peterson, right? And of course, I don't, like, agree with him that we can, like, take Carl Jung's archetypes and just, like, mash that in together and, like, dilute our definitions in the way that I feel he was claiming. But I will say, like, in spite of not having rational evidence, I would still like to engage with Pascal's wager of, like, I'm going to take the gamble on saying this God who seems to meet most of my moral standards is sufficient for me to engage with Pascal's wager of I'm going to bet on there being a God. And sometimes I feel when I'm in line with that, like, moral truth that I suppose is cultural in some sense, I sometimes feel a warmth or a presence which I would like to call God in a sense.
So it sounds like you just want insurance when it comes to the afterlife. Like, is that like you just want to be safe? But if that's the case, wouldn't God know that? If he's all knowing, he would know you're believing just in case. And I don't even think you can believe just in case. I think you're either convinced or you're not.
Yeah, I agree with Taylor. I don't think belief's a choice. I think you can act as if you believe, but do you think you can fool God into being convinced you're a sincere believer?
I wouldn't say that, like, the fear of the afterlife is what, like, prompts me. I would say for me, it's more.
I'm sorry, did either of us mention fear of an afterlife?
Sorry?
I might have fallen asleep or something. I don't think either of us mentioned fear of an afterlife.
Oh, sorry. Did we not? I thought that Taylor said that there was fear of an afterlife as part of it. Maybe I misheard that.
I said using God or belief in God as insurance for an afterlife.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see how you got to fear. Yeah, we were just asking if you think you can fool God.
I would say I'm personally more motivated with being in line with what I would call morally good. And I would say I'm aware that this is a subjective thing. But because of my upbringing and how I was, like, brought around to these beliefs, I've been habituated to believe that these beliefs mostly come from Christianity. Now, I reject some of their moral claims, such as their claims about homosexuality or the
which
truth of...
which ones come from Christianity, specifically?
The ones he agrees with.
Well,
like what?
I would say values of charity and values of, like, love thy neighbor as you love yourself. There's that verse where Jesus says that that's right up there with the most of the commandments.
Does it bother you that there are, like, religious texts that basically say the golden rule before the Bible was even a thing? Like, we know they didn't invent that type of thinking.
And the one in the Old Testament's better.
Yeah. We know it didn't, like, Christianity didn't invent treating people kindly, right?
Yes, I agree. So to answer that, I would
what's
say...
one, Joe, maybe this will make it clear.
Yeah, sorry, Matt.
What's one thing that is only attainable as a good proposition if we begin with the presumption that Catholicism is true?
Oh, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, Matt, I don't think that I can answer that honestly honestly and adequately. I think you're correct on that.
So if you don't have an answer, are there things that are bad that Catholicism and specifically the Bible advocate for?
Oh, I would say absolutely, yes. And, like,
cool.
I'm aware, if you don't mind me just prefacing that, that, like, I would say absolutely yes. I'm not kind of a full fundamentalist or an adherent to the church specifically.
No, I get it.
Or even the idea of Christianity. I'm thinking, like, if there is, like, an objective moral good, and if me and you were to act in the best interests of all of those around us for the greatest subjective well-being, almost in a utilitarian fashion, then I would be willing to call that God just as almost a throwaway.
Yeah, so I don't know that there's any objective thing, but I would agree on, if we're trying to make the world a better place, there are things we can discover that are non-subjective, but the initial decision to make the world a better place is still a subjective foundation.
I guess, Joe, I'm confused. I'm confused. Like, you say that Christianity didn't invent like these morals, and you also say there's stuff that you disagree with. So I guess I'm just wondering, what's the point then? Like, what does the Christian moral system bring that like something else can't? I guess I'm confused about that.
Yeah. This is where I've been having a little bit of trouble, and I suppose this is where my question comes from, because I feel that it's very hard not to mismatch them together in the way that like Jordan Peterson did in the debate that I mentioned previously. And I disagree with that idea of mismatching them together. But I suppose I would very much like to see like scholarly articles or like the history of how some of the logical sequencing that was done by Kant, for example, in his what's it called again? The something imperative, categorical imperative, is kind of it just ends up back at like love thy neighbor as you love yourself, and that goes back further than Jesus. That goes back to like even reciprocal altruism. We have good psychological stuff that shows that. I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I'm not an expert in any of that, but the idea that this like first century like scholar, like sometimes I feel like either he's God or I've been taken for an absolute show, and it's probably that I've been taken for a fool, right? But like at the same time, it's like, well, look,
I'm so
I was
confused.
raised like this, and I may as well live my life like this.
You don't have to. I'm kind of confused. You don't have to call yourself a fool. Like I don't look at every religious person and think they're a fool. I take in a lot of the nuances, which a lot of times includes indoctrination. But I guess I'm confused. Like, does it not really? It sounds like it doesn't really matter to you if, like, it doesn't really matter, period. Like you said, might as well, or something about continuing to believe just because, like, do you mean just be like a cultural Christian where you're going through the motions, but you don't really believe it all? I don't know. I guess I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you're close to what my viewpoint would be, like in the sense that, like, I don't mean that in any kind of demeaning way, by the way. I'm just saying, like, obviously it's very hard for two people to fully understand what each other are thinking. But I would say, for me, it's more like, how can I be as good of a person as possible, right? And then I see, like, when I'm reading some of the Bible, like that it's very, like, powerful and moving to me. And sometimes I think, well, like, wow, like the idea that somebody would voluntarily die for the sins of somebody else, right? Or not just somebody else, but the collective sins of somebody else. And for that to be a voluntary thing, even if that is just a story, like I would probably like worship that story as if it was my God, because like to me, that's so moving.
Okay. So I guess my question to that is, do you ever think about how it's kind of weird how God could just forgive us instead of doing a weird like blood ritual thing, because humans forgive each other all the time and we don't require sacrifice. Like he made it so that he had to sacrifice himself to be able to forgive us. So like I don't know, to me it doesn't feel so inspiring because he could have just forgiven us. We forgive each other all the time.
Yeah.
But even in the Old Testament, he requires some kind of blood sacrifice, which I find to be super weird. Because why do you need the killing of an innocent being to forgive? That doesn't sound like justice, and it also just doesn't make sense.
Well, the Old Testament is certainly super weird. I have to agree with you there. And like, there's some really horrible things in the Old Testament as well. I would say like the reason why it's more powerful if he sends himself to forgive in that fashion is I really like this idea that like the Christian God is a living God. So this is why I like think of Christianity as like the one that I'm willing to like give myself to in a sense, because this idea of like a living God who knows what it is to suffer, right? It is far more compelling to me than, for example, and I could be misrepresenting this because I'm not very versed in Islamic tradition or anything like that. But my idea is that Allah kind of has a scale, and it's like, oh, have you done enough good? Have you done enough bad? I prefer the like concept of my God knows what it is to suffer. I suffer. I live with like what even though I wouldn't maybe call it sin, the people who are more fundamentalist call it sin. I live with personal failures at a moral level, and for a God to understand that, he would have to be human, in my opinion.
First of all, sorry if you guys can hear thunder. It is like storming so hard. But I don't really understand that. So you're saying like you like that you don't have to like work your way to heaven, essentially. You like the system where you're just forgiven for everything. I think that's appealing to a lot of people in Christianity. So, but I think that also attracts a lot of terrible people, because especially with people who believe that you just have to believe in God to get to heaven, which doesn't make a lot of sense in so many different ways, but they can be a horrible person their whole lives and then believe in God at the end of it. And I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer did that, and a bunch of Christians accepted that. They're like, when pressed about it, I've seen so many videos where they're like, yep, he's going to heaven, but the gay men that he killed and ate are going to hell. That doesn't make any, like, that's a more fucked up system to me, because you're going based off of just validation. I don't know if you guys heard that. It scared me. Yeah, just off of validation, which just makes God seem narcissistic. Like, he doesn't care what kind of person you were to other people. He only cares about the validation that you've given him.
Okay, yeah. I actually, like, I would agree with you as a critique of the Catholic Church, or even like most Christian denominations. And like that's an excellent point, in my opinion. Like I would say it very much like this idea of like forgiveness right before death and conversion right before death, and this idea that God needs validation is very, very strange, and like to me it doesn't seem like correct. I would say that my faith claim isn't based in that. I would say that my faith claim is like how like it's not really. I'll get back to that actually, because I feel like that's irrelevant to your question, and I want to answer your question. That I would agree with you that these people who convert at the last minute are not worthy of salvation, so to speak. I don't think that like gay people are like. I myself am bisexual, so I would say like to me it's like the idea that the free choice to engage in a sexual act is like not sinful, and I'm aware that the Catholic Church disagrees with me on that position, and I would say, well, you know, like, look, you have your takes, I have mine, but like at the end of the day, like it doesn't seem to me that they're harming anybody, and is this idea of sin not to get as close to the moral good as we can?
Like, you seem to be completely ignoring that if there is a God, that God has a position, and what you think of it is irrelevant, and that you and the Catholic Church disagree, but you don't seem to be concerned about whether there's any possibility of getting to truth. Like, you're believing unfalsifiable things. You're believing things that you acknowledge are irrational. You're doing it mainly because you believe in belief. I'm still not sure if you think you can fool a God, or if you think belief is a choice, but all you're telling me is that you get some warm fuzzy about cherry picking whichever portions of Catholicism or Christianity or the Bible most align with what you think, which, by the way, is exactly one of the things that the Bible describes as heretical. You don't get to do that. As a matter of fact, the Catholic Church was so opposed to it that's why they were opposed to the Protestant Church. So, what methodology do you have? Do you even care if your beliefs are true, or just that they're comforting?
I do care in that my beliefs are true to an extent. I do not care that my beliefs are in line with the Catholic Church or any other denomination. In terms of the cherry picking, I agree that like I have cherry picked parts from the Bible, and that's just because I have my own kind of moral belief system, and at the top of that belief system, like whatever is the most moral thing, as good as a human can be, I would personally call that God. And if that God doesn't end up being Jesus, then like that's fine with me. If it ends up being Allah, then that's fine with me. If it ends up being not existing, but like I still want to strive for the highest moral good that we can. And I would say like I'm inclined to think that this idea of I believe Jesus says in the New Testament at one point, I've fulfilled the old law, and the new law is simply that you should love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And you have the epistles of Paul that go in and say,
I tell you what, if you're gonna cherry pick, at least cherry pick from the actual Bible and not. So everything you're saying is that you're not a theist because a theist believes in a personal agent God. You are at best some fuzzy deist that has made themselves and their concept of good, which they can't justify, into an air quotes God. And you have, I guess, a limited concern about what's true. And you're happy to go with half-formed thoughts about what you might have heard maybe about the... Why do you care about Catholicism or the Bible or whatever if you're just going to pick and choose which portions of it you pay attention to and which fictional portions of it you pay attention to? Why can't you just say, I don't believe in a personal God, I believe in good?
Well, I think that the two are very like. I suppose I could do that. Yeah, I mean, like I could. But to me, like that good would just. I have the inclination to, as I said, take Pascal's wager, or. Oh, yeah, you know what? You actually make a really good point. Can you expand
Yeah, you
on
should
that
watch my video on
the,
Pascal's wager because you're kind of misusing it. Blaise Pascal was advocating, first of all, he recognized that belief is not a choice. And one of the things that Pascal pointed out was that either a particular version of Christianity is true or atheism is true, which is already a false dichotomy. He then misrepresents what the risk is, that if you choose to believe, which he recognizes you can't do. And so he says, in that case, you should act as if you believe and hope that you convince yourself. So Pascal is advocating for intentional self-deception. So we've got a false dichotomy that ignores all other religions. He doesn't talk about what he doesn't know or talk about what the criteria is for achieving the preferred heaven or avoiding the weaker hell. There's nothing about Pascal's wager that is a reasonable course of action. And yet it's consistently used by Christians in particular to say, ooh, if you don't believe you could spend eternity in hell, that's too big a risk. You should just go ahead and believe just in case. Well, what if you believe just in case, which I don't think you can do because it's not a choice, and the actual God decides that your intellectual inferiority and dishonesty is deserving of eternal torment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the eternal torment thing, particularly if you don't mind, I'll answer that one, that part of that, or not answer, but I'll respond to that part of that statement specifically. With the eternal torment, what I believe is that if there was a highest moral good, then and that good was a personal being, then that personal being would not subject people to eternal torment. They would be forgiven.
Okay. Well,
So
congratulations, Joe, on just going with what you feel and ignoring that you could be wrong. I'm literally asking you what you're going to do if you're wrong, and you're just like, I don't believe I'm wrong. I believe that if there's a good being, it'll reward me for doing good. Well, congrats. What if there's not a good being? What if you're wrong about the criteria? Why are you making a decision without enough information to inform it?
Oh, my apologies. I didn't interpret your question there. I missed that. I must have turned my brain off for a second, I suppose. But if I'm wrong, then, well, I'm wrong. I'm okay with the kind of subjective and cultural idea of morality that we've kind of come to. I would call myself fairly liberal in a lot of senses, and like the idea of intersubjective morality, especially, I believe, I can't actually cite the authors of that, but I think that those are fairly compelling.
I also want to say it kind of sounds like you've just had like a good experience with Christianity and seen good experiences where maybe religion helps people with their morality, but where I'm living and what I'm watching, it's like the complete opposite. And I'm seeing the most hateful, vile people that I've ever witnessed, like, run the United States, and they're the Christian, like, they're the most popular type of Christian, evangelical in the country. So I guess when you point to the Bible as having some, you know, good ideas when it comes to morality, it doesn't matter because they also cherry pick. The thing is, they ignore some of the Jesus stuff and they get straight to like the Old Testament stuff where they're like, they're validating violence. They're saying the sin of empathy, like, like it. To me, anybody can cherry pick from it, and sometimes the worst people cherry pick from it, and they pick the most damaging things to focus on and justify. And I guess it also confuses me because if you look throughout history, people have used it to do awful, awful things and kill a lot of people. I don't know.
Yeah, but I would like to say that if you don't mind, I would like to I would like to denounce those Nick Fuentes types who kind of like take it and like kind of construe it in this like very hateful fashion. I would say like
I'm sorry, Joe, but what's your justification for that?
Yeah,
So,
what
for
it's
example,
just as valid.
Westboro Baptist Church is on stronger biblical footing than you are by a long shot.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay, so what's your justification for denouncing the people who are more biblically accurate than you are?
Well, I would say that my interpretation of the Bible is very narrow and cherry picked, but it's very narrow and cherry picked in that kind of red letter. I care what this guy Jesus Christ said, like, or is claimed to have said, and it's like, you know, those red letter Christians who like specifically focus on that the whole way through, and it's like, I would say like the guy who somebody thinks is God is that should probably be more important to these hateful people than like all of the epistles and the Old Testament and whatnot, because they believe this person is God. No.
To me, it's all the same. It's like they have equal justification. To me, it sounds like you're just a person who has empathy and you care about other people. So you're trying to make the Bible fit into that, or like only focus on the parts that align with you, which I understand wanting to do that. I did the same thing where I was a progressive Christian for a couple of years, but it just falls flat when you realize that your cherry picking of the Bible is just as valid as theirs, even though theirs is obviously vile and causing harm. I'm not saying they're equally as good or something, but they're equally as valid because the people can make the Bible say whatever they want it to say. And that's the issue, is that they're able to just pick whatever they want and say, oh, this is why we can take rights away, or this is why we can harm people, or whatever it is. And that, to me, is way more of a negative than the positive of some people taking bits from the Bible that they feel like they can squish into the morality they already have.
I'd like to address the red letter stuff. So, if you're not convinced that Jesus is in fact God, why would it matter what Jesus said?
I'm fairly convinced that, I saw something once where there's some, I think it's from one of the Gnostic Gospels, where Jesus kind of says, my relationship to the Father is nothing other than what your relationship to the Father
I'm sorry,
be.
Joseph, but Joe, I don't see how this answers my question. I'm trying to build to something.
Oh, sorry.
You've already said you're not convinced there's a personal God and you're only adhering to good, and yet you, Christian. So, if Jesus isn't God, why would it matter what Jesus said?
I suppose it would only matter as far as he was a moral teacher, but otherwise it wouldn't.
Cool. So, how do you know that you have an accurate record of what Jesus said?
I suppose we trust. You kind of trust first-hand sources, and if they're not true, you kind of acknowledge.
We don't have any Seth. We don't have any first-hand sources. The Gospels are anonymous, and sorry, I called you Seth. My apologies. You're Joe. The Gospels are anonymous. The Gospels are anonymous. We don't know who wrote them. They're not necessarily first-hand sources. But if I go and read the red letter stuff, for example, do you think the only legitimate grounds for divorce is infidelity?
No.
No, but Jesus claims that in Matthew 5. You know what else he claims?
Yeah. You've got me. I can't lie. You've got me here.
Oh no, I can keep going. I could do this all day because the red letter portion is also trash and unimpressive. I did an entire video just on the Sermon on the Mount and only covered part of it. Can salt ever lose its flavor?
Can salt ever lose its flavor? I don't know.
It cannot. So, and yet in Matthew 5:13, he says, if salt lose its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? This is all just from the first part of the Sermon on the Mount. Do you think lust should be considered adultery?
Struggle with this a lot. I don't think so. No, but
and yet Jesus does. And yet Jesus does. My point, Joe, is that, and I'm sorry, it's going to sound dickish, but I don't know how else to put it. You don't know what you're talking about and are inventing a God of your own that is compatible with your good idea and are pretending as if it's consistent with or gives a shit about what the red letter Jesus says, only because that binds you some credibility with some theist somewhere is the only reason I can think of to even do it. Because what you're really doing is making up shit on your own and then attributing it to something that isn't even real. Like, you don't think Jesus was God. You have no way of knowing that what Jesus has got red letter reported is accurate. And we've already shown just in the first, chapter 5 of Matthew, where you get the first serious red lettering, there's already multiple things in that one chapter that you think Jesus is wrong about. So why reference the red letters at all?
Yeah.
Oh, we lost Joe. Well, Joe, I know we've closed the line, so if that was an accident or whatever on your part, just go back and listen to it, watch, and think some more. It's okay. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything remotely shocking. It's okay to be in favor of what you understand to be good. Oh, Taylor, you're muted.
Oh, dang it. Okay. I also feel like this is usually the step before someone becomes an atheist, at least it was for me, where I was trying really hard to hang on to a religion while also having decent morals that involved caring about other people. And I think people have a hard time realizing that they have better morals than the God of the Bible. And they're told that's a very arrogant way of thinking and that God's always right. But matter of the fact is, the person who just called has better morals than the Christian God, and that's why he's struggling to find stuff that relates to him.
Yep. There's a lot of, when I did the kind of deconstruction of the Sermon on the Mount, there's a handful of things in there that are good. And that's why you hear referencing. You actually heard Joe reference it, because I was reading from Matthew chapter 5, where we start with the Beatitudes, and we go to a number of other things, but the end of chapter 5 is where you get to love your enemies, and the beginning of chapter 6 is where you get charity and give to the needy. And those are the things that he referenced. So he's heard of and approves of the end of chapter 5 and the beginning of chapter 6, but the other things in chapter 5, well, Jesus got that wrong, or the Bible got it wrong, or what, who knows?
Yeah.
It's okay to just advocate for good and then change your mind when you find out that your good isn't good enough.
Yeah, I feel like people at that point either get tired of the mental gymnastics or they just keep performing that the rest of their lives, I guess. That sounds exhausting to me. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how seriously I struggled. It's been a number of years. I can still remember the period of time. There was a good year and a half after I lost a job, where I thought God was punishing me for not becoming a minister. And so I surrendered. I never had a bad experience with the church. I never, wanted to get out, nothing. I just finally surrendered and said, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, I'll do it. And I spent I never really stopped, but there was a serious year and a half where I was unemployed and locked myself essentially in my room. I did other stuff too. It's not like I only prayed and studied. I played video games and looked for jobs and watched TV. But most of what would have been my work day was like a year and a half of kind of intense going through this. And God never showed up. God never offered any clarification. No minister that I talked to actually ever offered anything useful. And it's like when I found out, hey, this reason that I would give for believing is fallacious in this way, I'm the kind of person that can instantly scrub that from my brain. It's no longer eligible. Not only is belief not merely a choice for me, it is ripped away the instant I find that an argument is fallacious. Not because fallacious means false, but because fallacious means not reliable.
Yeah.
And until I find a reliable reason, I can't believe something. And I thought I had good reasons and I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good because a lot of people are emotionally attached to a religion that they grew up in. I remember for me, I was trying to hang on to it even though I knew it wasn't right because I'm like, what does this mean for my life? What does this mean for my relationships? What does this mean for my family? It was more like, ugh, I don't want to freaking do this at all. So I think that's a lot of what holds people back because they're like, damn, my whole relationships are going to change. I'm going to have to reevaluate my entire belief system. I'll lose community, whatever it is. And yeah, it's hard for different reasons, I guess, for different people.
It also, there are relationships and there's the risk I think most people experience, and I probably shouldn't say this because it's a mistake to speak on behalf of most people. I know that the relationships that I was worried about losing weren't relationships with God or the church. It was with the people who would still believe and would think poorly of me or think negatively. When I finally, I've mentioned this before, it's a Facebook group of people who were in the youth group that I was in during the years that I was there. I think my brother may have set it up at once upon a time, or at least was friends with the people who, we were all friends. We were all in the same youth group. I joined the group and the group died. I joined the group as an atheist, did not go in there I never had conversations. I never called anything out. I didn't go in to argue about, I just wanted to reconnect with some of the people who had been my closest friends. And instead of being willing to interact, it pretty much, like, I know exactly which ones shut it down, blocked me, etc. And some of them I'm still genuinely friends with. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with one of them last night. It was very brief. She's, as far as I know, still a devout believer and active in her church. I don't see a lot of posts from her, but I see enough to know that's probably still the case. She sent me a happy birthday message. I sent her a thank you. We had a quick conversation about how we're both doing with the state of the world and all that stuff. I don't know her politics. We haven't interacted in, Jesus, let's see, I'm 40 years ish.
Wow.
Close to 40 years. And it was a quick little catch up.
Why do you feel like the group, like they didn't want to interact in the group on Facebook? Like, I guess, wouldn't they try to convince you, or what was going on there? Or you think they were like afraid or didn't want to engage at all?
I have no idea. I also reached out to my former youth pastor and never heard back.
Really? Did you want to have a conversation with him, or were you just saying what's up? And
somebody just diagnosed me with ASDL1. Wow, good job. Please stop diagnosing people. You're not qualified, and you're not my doctor. But as if I would care either way. It's just the number of people who are like, oh, I'm going to diagnose you. Cool. Tells everybody a lot more about you than me, because I don't care. Yeah, I was looking because it was pretty early on in my deconversion. And this was a guy who had been a friendly youth pastor who went on to be a pastor of the church. He was probably the one that I was closest to amongst the pastoral staff at First Baptist Church of Harvester, and never got a reply. Maybe he didn't get the email. Maybe he didn't know what to say. Maybe he didn't want to interact. Like my parents and I don't tend to talk about religion at all anymore. That's partially how we keep the peace, but also they've pretty much acknowledged that they're closed-minded and not equipped for the conversation, and not interested in it. You know, God doesn't want them engaging with me on it. So they're not going to. And that's fine, because I'd rather not have to cut my parents off. Because, so for my 40th birthday, they sent me a birthday card that said, "We're praying for God to stop you no matter what the cost."
Huh?
Now that's the same thing that Pete Hegseth's pastor suggested should be done to Tellerico just the other day, which is why
it sounds like a threat.
It
like,
is.
What is that?
It is, you're working for Satan. We love God. If God has to kill you, we're okay with that. We're going to be sad and we'll miss you. But like Christy Nome and a puppy, we're going to have to let God put you down.
Yeah, that's the rough thing about telling your family that you're atheist, is that unfortunately they'll also be happy if you start struggling. Like if you start struggling in life, because to them that's a sign that might, or something that might bring you to God, or it's a sign that you're lost, or whatever it might be. And that sucks, because then you feel like you can't be open with your family about struggles, because you don't want to tell them, because you don't want them to be feeling justified. It's sad, but yeah, but saying that on a birthday card is insane. That is insane shit.
It's also like, I'm well aware of this, because so for a while I was the president of an atheist organization, and that I put myself in a position where I never wanted to be a local atheist gets arrested for thus and such. Not that I had any proclivities that were likely to get me arrested or anything, but I was constantly aware that whether I wanted to be or not, I was in some ways a representative of atheism to some portion of the public. I shouldn't be. It's a mistake to judge atheism based on any atheist. But I recognize the reality of it. And it fundamentally changed how I did some stuff. And so, for example, after I'd had multiple heart attacks that I didn't know I had, and I had a triple bypass, which happened just months after Arden and I got together. By the way, that'll be 5 years this June that the lovely and talented, super wonderful, sexy, smart producer down the hall and I have been together.
I didn't even know you guys were dating, and I found that out yesterday, and I felt so stupid because I went to your Instagram and I literally was like, oh my gosh, what are the chances that Matt and Arden both love snakes? And then I was like, I guess they must really bond over their love of snakes. I told Alyssa that, and she was dying. She was like, you're kind of right. I'm sure they do bond over snakes.
We did. We bonded over a bunch of stuff. And then shortly after we got together, I had to go in for open heart surgery. I mean, she had only moved in, like, we were living together a month or so, a month and a half, I think, before I found out I was going to have surgery, maybe almost 2 months, but
that's wild.
And that's a lot coming into a brand new relationship. You're living in a different state. You're dating somebody new. You just moved in. There's an age difference. There's all kinds of stuff. And now you've got, he's going to have a triple bypass. And how am I going to deal with that? She was wonderful and continues to be wonderful. Took me out for sushi for my birthday. Anyway, there are still callers here. I shouldn't just swoon all over my partner. Don't tell her how much I love her. I can't let it go to her head. But Frank is a theist calling from New York. Pronouns are EM. I guess there's a logical argument for the existence of God. Hey, Frank, you're on with Taylor and Matt. How are you?
Good. How are you guys? Thank you for having me.
Of course. What do you got?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of things in the last conversation that, I mean, if we get to, I'd like to chime in on. kind of similar to where the last gentleman started, as far as like having certain epistemic principles and foundations for the existence of God. I'm kind of curious on your position that taking the epistemic argument or the classical philosophical argument would be an unfalsifiable claim. I'd like to know exactly the argument against that. And just for context, I am also Catholic as well. I used to be Reformed Baptist Calvinist, so used to be along the very hard line thinking of, kind of distinguishing the world into saved and unsaved, good and evil people and whatnot. So I would consider myself more of a classical Catholic theist. I subscribe to a good amount of Thomistic views, and I agree with the church on a lot of its stances. So I'm Matt, I've seen you debate it. I'm pretty sure you're very familiar with it regarding the epistemic argument, or otherwise known as the presuppositional argument, for the existence of God. Is basically the grounding for how we know what we know. I don't find that the other explanations, as far as the existence of immaterial laws or ideas have their being, suffices, and I kind of think that it results in a logical absurdism. And so that's my position, Matt. Like I said, I know you're familiar with it, but if you want me to expound further, I'm happy to.
Sure. So just real quickly, because you asked why I would say that argument was unfalsifiable, just for clarity. I just spilled a drink. Just for clarity, it's propositions that are falsifiable, not arguments. Arguments are either valid and sound or they're not. And so I would need you to present your specific version of the argument for me to try to address where it's valid and sound. But if the conclusion is essentially the proposition that God is the grounding for what, let's say, knowledge, is that fair?
Sure, yeah, you could say that.
Cool. Then I don't know what that means, nor do I know how that proposition is testable. What's it mean to be a grounding for knowledge? Because I'm not aware that knowledge requires a grounding, has a grounding, or that you can identify what that grounding is.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess, and I would argue from the contrary, in the sense that if knowledge doesn't have a grounding, then are we able to say that knowledge in and of itself, or I would point to anything that's immaterial, has an objectivity to it? Is it grounded in any kind of objectivity?
So for me, when I'm talking about knowledge, knowledge is a subset of belief. Belief is the state of being convinced that a proposition likely accurately represents reality. And knowledge is most often, even though philosophically it often gets defined as a justified true belief, I don't know that there is a demonstrable justification that applies globally for knowledge. And I don't know that we necessarily have access to truth in the kind of capital T sense that some people would use. So for me, something is true if it conforms to reality, and something qualifies as knowledge if it's a belief that is it's essentially held to such a high degree of confidence by warrant of the supporting evidence that it would be worldview altering to discover it was wrong. So I know something, not because I don't think absolute certainty is possible for anything, nor do I think it's required for knowledge. But in a world where I don't even know what a grounding is or how there could be a grounding, I would say that two propositions. The Earth is an oblate spheroid, or the Earth is flat. It's possible both of those are false, but at most only one of them can be true. And based on the available evidence, the truth seems to be that the Earth is an oblate spheroid. I believe that, and I think it is warranted to such a degree that I would freely call it knowledge. But I don't care if somebody else doesn't call it knowledge, because we don't wait till we have knowledge to act. We act in accordance with our beliefs. And so whether you think you have knowledge or not, what shape you believe the earth is going to impact, what other things you're likely to believe because of the foundations for it. So where's the grounding? Because for me, to the extent I could call anything a grounding, it would be my experience of reality, which I don't have any way to demonstrate is accurate or true, other than it consistently produces results. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying not to ramble, but I genuinely don't know. Like, I've heard this many, many times. Oh, we're going to presuppose that God is the grounding for knowledge. Why does knowledge need a grounding? Oh, because without a grounding, anything goes. No, that's not true. If I have as a foundation for knowledge, we construct a web of understanding of reality.
Sure.
And once we have a whole bunch of beliefs from our direct experience and by learning from other people's experience, we have this structural web. And then somebody makes a claim, and you then begin to evaluate, is this claim like, hey, we launched a rocket to orbit the moon today? Is that claim consistent with all the facts of reality that I understand and know that make up this mesh? And let's be honest, not all the facts that I know and understand are in fact true. I may not have any way to demonstrate any of them are true. And so I'm essentially, and I never got to have a conversation with Susan Hawk over this, but I'm not a foundationalist or a coherentist. I'm a foundherentist, and that a combination of foundationalism and coherentism that she came up with is the one that most accurately describes where I'm at epistemologically. And now I feel like I put 90% of people to sleep and not let you talk. And so tell me what you think a grounding for knowledge is and why it's necessary.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good question. And there was a few points you touched on that if we circle back, I'll be happy to touch on. So when it comes to a grounding for knowledge, we would say that knowledge in and of itself has a particular immaterial nature to it, right? So we cannot fully account for the things that are present within reality that are in and of themselves immaterial. So one of these things, I forget who it was you debated on this, where it was it might have been Matt Slick, where he was talking about the intelligibility and induction, like for the scientific method and whatnot, and like how we can basically account for the fact that these theories are there when they're essentially when they're immaterial in nature. And so the argument would
I don't know, but I'm sorry, Frank, because I'm confused about something. Did you say that? It sounded like you said that knowledge, you didn't use this exact wording, but this is how I read it. And if you understand it, cool. That knowledge is immaterial in its ontology. And I don't think that knowledge has an ontology. I don't think knowledge exists. Knowledge is the label we put on beliefs that are of a particular warrant, but it's not like they have some, it's not like they're immaterial things or abstract things like the concept two. It is, I have a belief and it's either warranted or not, and it either rises to the level of knowledge. So for me, what's wrong with saying it's grounded by the facts of reality that I grasp?
Right. Well, that's kind of like where the question becomes, where at the start, I think you said that you said that you don't believe that there is an objective grounding for knowledge. Is that what you said?
I don't even know what one is or would look like or why it would be necessary. And so, no, I am not convinced that there is a grounding for knowledge in the way, not to burden you with this, but not in the way that presuppositionalists use. Also, I don't think you get to presuppose anything. I think you need to demonstrate it.
Sure. And
apart from necessaries, I want to make that clear. There are things that we cannot demonstrate, but we assume that you and I are experiencing the same reality, that our senses are generally reliable to the extent that they can be tested. That even though there's no solution to the problem of hard solipsism, you know, I'm probably not a brain of that, or at least shouldn't assume I am.
Kind of the direction I was eventually that it would go. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're fine.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of on that point where, and I think I mentioned it before, where it's the argument from the contrary, but also on the point of presuppositionalism. I'm definitely not like a hardline presuppositionalist like a James White or a Jeff Durbin. I used to subscribe to a lot of that thinking. I understand that in and of itself, it's completely circular and fallacious. I get it of that. However, I would make the argument that no argument in and of itself does not have some form of circular reasoning within it. However, it's not like entirely circular the way presuppositionalism is. I'm aware that that's the case, but kind of back to the point of the argument from the contrary, which is that I would argue that without an objective founding for like the basis of reality and knowledge and scientific theory and whatnot, that to your point, which is what you alluded to, that you would fall into a hardline solipsism and basically like complete absurdity.
No, so I'm not aware of any philosophical solution or any other type of solution to the problem of hard solipsism, but that doesn't mean that that it's then warranted for me to assume I'm a brain in a vat or being fed a reality. So I'm not afraid that I'll fall into it. I see this as a problem that we don't have a solution for, just like, you know, the various paradoxes, you know, Zeno's paradox, whatever. It's frustrating that there are those puzzles out there that don't appear to have solutions, but I don't think we get to assume that there's a magical being that somehow serves as the solution, because we tend to explain things in terms of other things that we understand. And it seems to me that all the presuppositional claims about God being a grounding for knowledge or morality or whatever you want to stick it is appealing to a mystery to try to solve a bigger mystery that is pointing to a problem that I'm not even convinced is a problem that we can address or has a solution.
So on that point, I would the main point of contention where I would disagree is I would argue that I would say that it is a problem, specifically in the realm of like I would use like morality, for example, in the sense that the immaterial claim, right? Like, so a law stating within the confines of morality, like rape is impermissible, let's say, right? That in and of itself is a law, and that it would result in moral absurdity if we then make the claim that we cannot know objectively as to whether or not rape is actually immoral or not. Like, I would. Why? That comes to me the absurdity.
Why does that go to absurdity? Because here's the thing. I'm reluctant to use the term. Can we shift from grape to murder?
Sure.
Cool. As a purely pragmatic solution, I'd like to continue living, and I'd like to not be killed. And it is pragmatically in my best interest to discourage other people from killing people and to oppose any system of government that would permit or declare that murder is permissible. I don't know why I need any more, but I absolutely dispute the notion that what I said was absurd. It just isn't absolute, and it doesn't have some externally imposed foundation that I can point to. But also, that's not solved in any way by appealing to a God, because you can't even demonstrate that there's a God to point to as a foundation when I don't need a foundation. All I need is that if you and I agree that the world is better off if we're not killing each other, then we should work together to discourage and not make it permissible. What's wrong with that?
I would agree with that, and this is one of the reasons why I moved away from like hardline Protestantism and Calvinism and whatnot, because I mean, objectively speaking and stating my beliefs, I believe we're all made in the image of God, so we're able to ascend to the good, the true, and the beautiful. But that's a sidebar. So the pushback that I would give is, I would say that in one sense we are saying that it does not need to be grounded in some form of objectivity, but at the same time, we can kind of account for it as an absolute. But really, my main point is, I would also argue that pragmatism is not a. I would not argue that pragmatism is a foundation that I would go by in terms of what any form of like objectivity for these universals would be based on. I would not argue that pragmatism is a reliable enough foundation for these principles.
Yeah, I don't know that I was actually doing that, although I did mention it. So here's the thing.
Sure.
What I'm saying is, I am essentially some version of a consequentialist, and that is very simply, actions have consequences. Those consequences go beyond the individual in many, if not all cases, because we don't live in a vacuum. So what I do impacts your life. What you do impacts mine. We're going to have to survive together on this rock. All of those things being, as far as I can tell, objective facts. Now the question is, what sort of things ought we to encourage or discourage? And I'm with Hume that you can't derive an ought from an is, but if you set a particular goal, which is not necessarily, like if I just say, I want to live in the world that is better for me, let's make it just purely selfish. I can justify what everyone else would identify as altruism from purely selfish justifications. It's in my best interest to cooperate with other people. It's in my best interest to help school the next generation that may come up with a cure to the cancer that's probably going to kill me. Even if I only want to be perceived as a good person, it is better for me to act as if I'm a good person, or to act as if other people would call me a good person. So why donate to charity? Well, if I'm seen donating to charity, that can earn me some credibility and status in society. But also, it also fundamentally improves the world that I live in, because I'm with John Rawls in the sense that design the world that you want to live in, not knowing who you will be in it. Do you allow for slavery? Do you allow for murder? Do you help the homeless? Do you have health care and basic income and education? Make those decisions not knowing if you're going to come in as a poor inner city kid or the son of the current billionaire president. And if you don't know which of those you're going to be, all of a sudden that removes a lot of the bias. And what we would identify as a better world is now entirely selfish in its origin, and yet still demonstrably better. Right?
Sure. I would the example that you laid out, my question would be, like, for example, you gave like a sociological argument in terms of like how one would function in society in terms of bettering it or moving it forward or participation. So my question would then be, if there was a hypothetical in which you were living in a society and it was pragmatic, let's say, for you to participate in the means that you laid out, but this society in and of itself was at its foundation or at its core moving towards, let's call it traditional ideal Christian values, or even one that you disagree with more, like Protestant Christian values, like from the South. Do you still believe that it would be the morally correct thing to participate in the society in a, let's call it undisruptive manner, if you would say that that's a fair analogy to the example that you just laid out?
I not only don't still believe that, I don't know that I ever believed that. Dissent is, well, there's the bumper sticker that dissent is patriotic, but dissent from corruption is a good. And it is better for me to work in opposition to Christian nationalist ideas, against racist and homophobic and LGBTQ bigoted ideas, because that impacts the people around me. And if I have very basic principles about individual autonomy, freedom, justice, and personal responsibility. And when I see we have a constitution that we're supposed to be upholding, and the current administration are traitors to the Constitution and are violating due process, killing American citizens, killing puppies, although I guess that's not unconstitutional. It should be. It is. This is the question of, if it's in your personal, immediate, short-term best interest to go along with the Nazis, does that make it moral? And the answer is no. It makes it understandable why someone who was in a position could view that as like a gun to their head scenario and go along with it. But that is the pragmatic solution that isn't about what's actually best, because it results in a worse world to go along with them. And because I'm not just in this world for me, I'm not actually going to have offspring, but I have nieces and nephews and friends, and their kids are people who I love, and I'd like a better world for them. So it is, I think the answer to your question is, one could make a case for that if one were being especially myopic. But if you begin with foundational principles like autonomy and freedom and justice, by the way, I apply empathy as well within morality. Not just because I'm empathetic, and I might be less empathetic than a lot of people, but because I understand the value and benefit of empathy, and I think it's something to encourage, because that makes the world a better place too. What we know from game theory about cooperation. I don't see that there's a problem with ungrounded morality in the way precepts might use it, or ungrounded knowledge in the way precepts might use it. But I also don't see that appealing to some being that you can't demonstrate exists to solve a problem that may not be a problem. It's like, I don't see the solution there. And that's why I've always been confused by this. And that's why I started with, I don't know what grounding is. Frank, I apologize.
Sure.
I want to continue this conversation another time, but I got one more caller to get to before we wrap up tonight. Can we just end this on a great note and say, Frank, you're my favorite caller of the day, even if the two of us together managed to put a bunch of people to sleep, and we should continue this maybe next Wednesday or whenever you have time.
All right. I'll be looking out for the live stream. I appreciate that.
Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Appreciate it. You too.
All right. We have one caller, and no, I'm not going to apologize to all the viewers who were like, oh my God, dump this call. Please stop, please. So this is what you just saw and heard is why it's not necessarily a good thing to just say, oh, there are priests up, ignore it. And it's because they've become convinced of a problem, and problems need solutions. And if they're unable to find any solution, it can feel like they're justified in proposing one with magic man done it, or they don't think of it in those terms. And I don't think Frank would. And maybe we'll get to that next time. So thanks for a great talk that a lot of people aren't going to like at all, but I did. So thanks. Did we put Taylor to sleep? She's muted again.
Gosh, I need to stop doing that.
Were you trying to talk the whole time and just muted and I didn't see it?
A little bit. It's all right. I was just going to say that was a way more productive conversation about morality than me and Alyssa had last night. I think I got completely burnt out with some guy last night about morality, and I was losing my mind. But that one was way better than the one I had last night, so I think it was good.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry you were muted, because it would have been, although sometimes...
No, I wasn't trying to talk the whole time he was here.
Okay.
Just, no.
Sometimes it's better anyway, not for any of the standard reasons, but it can be a lot.
Yeah.
Most of the people calling into these shows probably haven't spent a lot of time having these conversations, and certainly not with people who've had the conversations as many times as, the hosts and co-hosts on the line have had.
Yeah.
And it can seem unfair in kind of a ganging up 2-on-1, which is why I tried with Larry to completely take a back seat, but
Right.
Larry is so obsessed with me that it's just, and Larry, let's be honest, Larry at least knows me well enough to know exactly what to say to make sure that I'm not going to let him talk shit about.
I did have a question really quick because I wanted to know how popular this is, but I have so many people who talk to me about morality and how basically, I can't ground morality in anything. And they always give two examples, which is like the twin brother thing and the corpse thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is one of them just about disposition of corpse? Why do we treat corpse with respect?
Yeah, basically, like they talk about violating a corpse.
Yeah, okay.
And then the other one is like twin brothers in a inappropriate relationship. And it's like their go-to where I've had like 5 different people say these two exact situations, and I wanted to know how widespread this was. And if it's like a common thing.
I've heard them both many, many times. The
Okay.
corpse one is the one that I have the better, well, I think I have good answers to both of them, but the corpse one, I point out that this is about what kind of world you live in. If you live in a world where you know that what happens to your corpse after you die is going to be something that you don't prefer, then you suffer the anticipatory anxiety of that for your entire existence, knowing that once you're dead, it's okay to violate you. And that
Right.
is trauma that you're going to suffer the entirety of your life. So when you do it, you're no longer hurting anyone who would know about it because they're a corpse. But allowing it and encouraging this sort of society where it comes in harms so many people prior to them becoming a corpse. And so we respect people's wishes because we'd like our wishes respected, and because it makes life easier and better while you're living it.
Right.
As far as two twin brothers hooking up,
so specific.
I don't have any objection to it at all. I don't care who it weirds out, grosses out, whatever. I'm not a fan. I don't understand it, but I do know that there are psychological things like kin attraction, which is why some people, some siblings who have been separated and didn't know they were siblings find themselves attracted to each other. That's a real thing. But at the end of the day, if 2 consenting adults want to have sex, and there has not been some sort of power dynamic disparity or other indoctrination,
right?
All of the
which
things
there
being equal,
normally is, which is why like they have to be so specific.
But if there hasn't been, I don't have an objection to it. It ain't my thing, but I don't know what it's hurting, and I don't know that it's immoral. What I do know is that the people who are objecting to it have been taught that it's one of the many icks. Incest is ick, and this is ick, and homosexuality is ick. So the whole thing is like super ick, and I need a way to say it's immoral. Well, cool. You needing a way to say it's immoral doesn't make it immoral, doesn't mean you're right about it, but it may be a really bad idea for the same reasons that it's a bad idea to encourage disrespect or stuff to a corpse. Because if we allow that, it could become a sort of societal contagion, I suppose, is what they're going to be talking about. And it might, I don't know.
Right.
That could increase harm for them and the people they love during their life.
Right.
It's like, how is it immoral for me to take my own life? Well, it might be, depending on how it impacts the people I care about.
Right.
Or people who care about me. So that's what you have to consider.
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right, that's a lot. We got one more call to go, and then we'll get on to your super chats. We're going to read all the super chats over $10. And by the way, I haven't done it once. This person's been on hold for 2 hours and 9 minutes. I'll do announcements after we talk to them because that's a long damn time. James in Maryland, pronouns are him. How are you, and how can we help after your 2 hour plus wait?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good.
I'm about to disappoint you.
Oh, no. Why is that?
because there's no way any answer I give is going to be worth your 2-hour wait. Matter of fact, I'm gonna make sure that Taylor answers first, since I just had the whole last
now I feel
conversation.
pressure that I have to have like a good. Okay, just go ahead, James.
It can be a bad answer. Mine's going to be worse.
No, I'm open to any answer. It's probably off topic for your last 2 hours, but I have a genuine question about free will.
Okay.
I have a very hard time believing that there is no free will. I've studied as much as I can. I can't say that I'm well versed, but I've studied enough of it, and I can't wrap my head around the idea of not having free will. And I have a list in front of me of questions I would like for you two to kind of maybe push the conversation forward, if that makes sense.
Do you?
I have a general idea. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Do you feel like you need? I guess I'm confused why you feel like you need to get to that conclusion.
Oh no, there is no need here. I genuinely don't.
You just want to understand why other people think that?
No, I've studied both sides, I guess, and I generally can't understand the reason why people think that we do not have free will. Like, I don't want to say predeterminism or determinism. I don't want to go down that route, but I don't think that everything was preset from, if whatever you believe in the Big Bang, so on and so forth, whatever it will be. It's hard for me to believe that everything is in motion from the beginning of time. I can't wrap my head around that. I was hoping that maybe one of you had a opinion.
To me, not having free will doesn't equal everything set, like everything is predetermined. Like, there's a lot of stuff that could happen even if we didn't have free will, I feel like. Or you don't feel the same way?
I don't feel the same way, I think. I disagree with that. How could that be? How could you have a decision on something that you have your action can't determine? If that makes sense.
I guess I'm thinking of things completely outside of human control. Like, what if a natural disaster happened to somebody's family and that had a butterfly effect? And I don't know. For me to say it's all all laid out sounds like there's some kind of higher being to me. I don't know, but I don't have super strong opinions on this. But
well, so we at least know, and I'm not completely sure that free will, if there isn't free will, that means fatalism is necessarily true, because while we do think the universe is soft deterministic, we don't necessarily think it's hard deterministic. But setting all that aside, I'm glad you probably saw me smile, because the first question I was going to ask is, what difference does it make? And that's basically the question that Taylor asked first anyway. So how would you demonstrate that we do in fact have free will?
Oh, I hold no strong opinions. This is a genuine
okay.
I'm inquiring. So I don't know the answers.
Okay.
I've studied both sides as much as I can, I guess, if you will, and I just can't see the other side of it. But I guess,
does the universe operate? Does a universe operate in a largely deterministic way? And the answer, I think, is yes. And so does that mean...
Yeah, I believe that's true.
So does that mean that from the beginning of the expansion, all the interactions of every atom was essentially determined, not planned by an intelligence, but, if I create a firework, a friend of mine actually does this, and I take it out and I light it. When it explodes, is it the case that there was only ever one possible explosion? Every atom in that being positioned exactly where it was, igniting at the instant that it did, can only produce one outcome. Is that determinism?
Well, so I kind of have something, along those lines here. Well, I guess along those lines. If you take like the multiverse theory, if that does exist, would that prove free will does exist, or would that prove free will doesn't exist because all options are available and not available at the same time? If there is a multiverse.
Yeah, okay. I'm not interested in going into multiverse things. I was talking about determinism.
Okay, fine.
And either it's the case, either it's the case that when that particular firework explodes, it can in fact only produce one result, or it can produce different results. Which one's correct?
I guess it would be one result, right?
Okay. If that is the case for fireworks, what's different about you that makes you work different than a firework? Are the laws of physics different around you?
No, and I don't believe. I believe I am a body. I don't have a body. So, but does my brain have the ability to tell my hand to move, or does it not? Am I able to move my hand, or is that something that was?
Are you able to move your hand as an exercise of will, or because that is what the physical rules of the universe have dictated you to do? Just like the explosion. So that's why I said, if you want to say that you have free will, you need to explain what's different about you from a firework.
Oh, I can't do that.
Then you don't have a justification for thinking.
No, I want you to tell me how that would work. I have no hard opinions. I'm not here. I have at the top of my page, fight the urge to be a contrarian. I'm genuinely inquiring because it interests me. I just can't see. I can't see the one side. I can understand I can understand free will.
It's wild that you keep saying it's wild that you keep saying you don't have a hard opinion, but you keep saying you can't see. You can only see one side, and you literally, in the question that you gave to the screener, you said, "How is it possible that we don't have free will?" And my response to you would be, "How is it possible that you do have free will?" If you can't answer that, you can't justify your other question.
So does that mean that because I can't answer we have free will, that automatically means that we don't have free will?
No, it means the answer is I don't know.
I thought I stated that at the beginning. I don't know. I have no. I'm asking for opinions.
You're asking. You called in to ask us to demonstrate how it's possible that we don't have free will.
Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. Maybe I misworded that at the beginning. I don't understand how people. I don't understand the argument towards not having free will. Maybe that was the better way to phrase that.
I just gave you the argument. You don't think that firework had free will, do you?
I do not.
Then what's different about you that gives you free will that a firework doesn't have?
So from the beginning of time, everything was set in motion.
Oh my God, James.
I don't know if I believe in free will or not, to be honest. When somebody asks me this, I'm like, I literally don't know. And if I feel like I wouldn't know. I feel like that's just something I wouldn't know. But I did see a video.
I thought I'm generally calling to ask. I don't know.
Okay, so I saw a video where a woman was talking about, she had on the stove and she said, I cannot touch this stove. Like, she cannot do it. And I thought about that a lot in different situations of like, I literally couldn't do it either, even if I wanted to like to prove I have free will, I couldn't do it. And so that's, I don't know, situations like that are interesting to me. Obviously it would hurt, but then you have to think about that in so many other situations. So I don't know, but I just thought that was an interesting point that was made.
Yeah, I don't mean to sound argumentative or anything.
I'm not.
I'm not phrasing my question right or wrong.
Well,
or
no. What you're not doing is answering the question. So I asked you. I gave this.
Ask me again.
Why are you?
Sorry,
oh my God! Would you let me finish? You don't think the firework has free will, and I said, okay, what's different about you from the firework? And your response was, oh, so from the beginning of the universe, that's not an answer to the question. You skipped the answer to the question to go on to make an inference that may be not even true. I want to know, if you think there's a possibility that you have free will, then there must be something that makes you different with respect to the rules of the universe from a firework. Do you know what that is? Do you think you're different? Because if you don't think you're different and you think that you have free will and the firework doesn't, you are irrational by definition.
Well, I mean, as far as different from the firework, I mean, there's an infinite things that are different from me and a firework. I mean, but in the simplest terms, I mean, I have a brain. I can communicate. I can see.
What makes your brain work differently than a firework with respect to the physics of the universe?
I can't say that there is any.
I can't either, which is why I don't see a difference between what you're describing as free will, because there's a brain that does something. And I think if a firework were able to consider what it did, it might have decided that it exploded when it wanted to and sent particles in whatever direction it wanted to. There doesn't seem to be any way to demonstrate that any of this is will. And even the best that people can do with soft determinism is to point to something like quantum indeterminacy. But that's randomness. That's not will. So there doesn't seem to be any solution to this. So instead of saying, please demonstrate that we can't have free will, why didn't you call in and say, please?
For that to be the question.
I'm just saying, why didn't you call in and say, please demonstrate that we can have free will? And it's because you've already made an assumption towards one side. And then I asked you the questions that gets to expose why you shouldn't be making the assumption towards one side.
I completely understand what you're saying. I apologize if I misphrased my question. I just can't. Maybe I haven't heard a good argument as to why we don't have it. And the firework explanation, it's pretty simplistic, I guess, in a sense, but I don't know. I get it in the simplest form if you put it as a firework example, but unarguably there's a difference between a human and a firework. We can agree on that, I think.
Is there? What's the difference? With regard to how it operates in a universe based on physical laws, what's the difference?
Well, I can't make a difference when you phrase it like that. I don't want to sound like I'm arguing with you. But if that's in the physical world, yeah, I mean, there is no difference. We're all made up of things that were created in the universe. I don't have a...
This is why the people who are advocating for free will most frequently try to point to something non-physical, something spiritual, some sort of soul, some sort of ghost in the machine, something that has a will of its own that isn't contingent on and subject to the physical laws of the universe. And I've seen no demonstration that any such thing is possible or is actual, just that that's what people hope for. And I've had really good friends who are like, I'll never believe that I don't have free will. I don't care if it's an illusion. I don't care what the arguments are. I'm convinced I have free will and I'm going to stick with that. And my answer is, okay, I don't really care. Because to get back to the first question that Taylor asked, which was the first one I wrote down, what fucking difference could it possibly make to any conversation, whether or not you have free will or the illusion of free will? You are still the agent that is responsible. When Sam Harris and I were out on tour, Sam was objecting to any concept of free will, and I'm pointing to one that's consistent with compatibilism. I have since changed the way I describe it. But the example I used is Sam could get up and walk to the front of the stage and jump off to the front row of the audience. Or I could throw Sam off the front off the stage and have him land in the front row of the audience. In both scenarios, Sam went from the stage to the audience. The only difference is which agent took the action, because when Sam does it, he has the perception that it is his will in action. And when I do it, Sam has the perception that it is my will in action and imposing over his will. And all we care about responsibility, accountability, is summed up in identifying which agent's will, whether it was free or not is irrelevant, was the one that was the controlling one or violated. So it doesn't have to be free will to be valuable. It just has to be will.
Okay. I understand that. That actually makes sense. I've never. So with your firework analogy,
baby, you're where? Sorry, somebody said it in chat. Now the song's stuck in my fucking head.
Does the? I don't want to make this. I'm not trying to make you sound like an asshole or anything. I'm genuinely trying to ask this question the correct way.
I do that on my own, man. You're good.
I'm sorry?
I said I do that on my own. You're good. Just get the point, because I got to move on to supers.
Does the firework have the illusion that it made the decision to explode when it wanted to?
No. I only say that to the extent that I have no reason to think that a firework has any self-reflective conscious awareness. If somehow or another we are able to demonstrate that a firework does have that, then I would change my no. My no is subject to revision upon new information, but as it stands right now, fireworks aren't conscious.
Do we?
Yes, we're literally conscious. We are self-reflective. We are aware of what's going on. We are able to consider and reflect, but that doesn't change anything about whether or not we have free will. That just is what gives us will. I don't think a firework has will.
So how can you compare us to the fireworks? And if I'm missing it, I apologize. I'm not trying to be argumentative. If I missed
apology
your point,
accepted. I'm moving on to super chats. I am not going through this again. I thought that you completely understood, but my point was to have you or anybody identify what is different from us about fireworks that isn't consistent with the laws and contingent upon and subject to the laws of physics. My will, as far as I can tell, even though it is different from a firework that doesn't have will, is still subject to and contingent upon the laws of physics.
So consciousness plays no effect on that. It has no way on that.
I'm done. I'm completely done. I didn't mention consciousness. Okay. I didn't say anything about whether or not it has an effect.
You did bring up consciousness.
No, James. We're fucking done.
Well,
say goodnight.
I didn't bring. You
say goodnight, James.
I didn't.
Say goodnight, James.
Okay, fair enough.
Thanks.
Hi, James.
We're doing so good. And then it's, so consciousness doesn't play any part in that. Holy crap. I just talked about the conscious awareness. It is still subject to the laws of physics as far as I can tell. If it's not, make your case. We got to move on.
Fair
enough. We ran like 18 minutes past the time that we really had for that call, but I don't know. I'm a geek. We got a bunch of super chats and a huge thank you. By the way, the one thing that I didn't do with the announcements, I should probably do now, although I'm not sure if I have. Has the schedule been updated?
So the schedule that I finally got you used to is now out of date because we just updated with the new system. So after like a year of using that schedule and finally getting you on it, yes, we changed it.
Arden's been telling me the schedule.
Hold on.
I could have opened a spreadsheet, and now the spreadsheet ended yesterday, and now we're using a new tool. So sometime in the next 3 or 4 years, I will figure out the new tool. But I'm going to try and do it by next week. But Arden, do you have a schedule to tell people about shows that are coming up at least over the next week?
1 second. Okay.
Thank
so
you,
tomorrow on the Transatlantic Call-In Show is going to be Dr. Ben and Luxander, and Dr. Ben is not with us for too much longer. He's going on to be a doctor in Pennsylvania. So let's enjoy his shows while he sticks around. He's going to be a guest.
We're losing, but yeah, we get more shows.
Yeah. This Saturday. Oh, actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything yet.
Ooh,
I imagine Jimmy wants me to. There may be a show this Saturday for a new show, so keep your eyes out. Then Sunday on the early show, it'll be Matt with Austin Archer. Sunday show after dark will be Forrest Valkai with Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. Skeptalk will be on Monday. Will be with Forrest Valkai and Aaron Adair. Chewed Gum will be with Taylor and Alyssa next Tuesday. And then next Wednesday, back here on the Hang Up, will be Matt with Brady Goodwin. So
yay,
stick around, hit the notification bell and all those.
Awesome. We're going to read out your guys' super chat. So first of all, as always, a huge thank you, even before we get to the super chats. And a big thank you to Taylor, because I think, didn't Arden just like reach out to you yesterday or something to say, hey, you want to do Wednesday show? It's
fun.
Thanks. I'm thrilled that you're here and happy to have you back anytime. We can do a Sunday show. We can do Wednesday shows, whatever. But I've been catching your stuff more and more and seeing you on Chewed Gum. Although, to be fair, Tuesday's my day off and I don't spend as much time watching Chewed Gum as I used to.
No, I was talking about how many shows on this channel I haven't seen, because I feel like since I talk about this stuff all the time, I just turn my brain off and I don't watch it really in my free time, unfortunately.
Yes. I'm actually watching slightly more. So for years, I didn't watch atheist content because I didn't want to be copying somebody. I didn't want to take something somebody else said and be like, oh, I'm going to mimic. So it's, oh no, this needs to be me and my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good most of all. But it also means I'm prone to getting stuck in my ways, or that I'm not always aware of everything that's going on. Lately, I've been watching more and more content from Justin, from Dr. Blitz, from there's a couple people you'll be seeing coming up. And I always want to get anybody I can who is potentially good at having these conversations and better in some way than I am. Because I want to have the good conversations, and I am not always the right person to do it, depending on who's calling. So that's why I want hosts that aren't, and co-hosts that aren't as much like me, other than, hey, we're on the same page. Let's see if we can turn the page slightly differently instead of ripping it out and wadding it up and throwing it across the room.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. Happy belated birthday, Matt. Looking forward to a great show. Hey, thanks. And that's still a good looking bamboo. I've only got a couple bamboo, but I did get a new snake today, which I'll go grab while Taylor reads the next one.
$9.99 from Greg Markowski. Drove past the Gashlin Baptist Church on my way home from No Kings. Thought of Matt. Happy birthday, Matt.
That Gashlin Baptist Church is in Kansas City, Missouri. In Gladstone, right, Berry Road in North Oak. And that's where my family went to church, where I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 and accepted Jesus into my heart. And Brother Moody gave me, oh, do I not have it right here? I still have the New Testament. I have 2 of these itty bitty New Testaments. This one is from my teenage years. Actually, look, actually before teenage. So this was, Matt Dillahunty, April 23rd, 1980. And this is Rennick, my 5th grade teacher. I was 11. Funny. Gave me this New Testament.
You had good handwriting.
I think
for a kid.
Yeah, this is something that should not fucking happen in public schools. But we didn't. I don't need teachers giving out Bibles. But I have a little blue one here that is still in the box that Brother Moody gave me. But I'll dig it up some other time. Let me get that snake after I read the next super chat. $20. Thank you so much from Green Man Dave. Happy birthday, Matt. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Yay for Artemis 2. Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to hear the excuses coming from the flat earthers, because just in the 30 minutes that I watched it, you could clearly see the curvature of the earth as that ship was heading out. So what are they going to say now?
$10 from LSJ. The Sunday show would be 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. to Simon Dan, maybe it would be worth another try. I don't know who that is, but I'm sure it's a reference to something I am unaware of from the show. Oh my goodness. Right. They're so big.
This is a pastel leopard clown mahogany male ball python, and a really big male.
How old is it?
I bought him because we have a mahogany breeder. I can't hear anything right now, so apologies if I'm talking over, but I bought him because we have a mahogany male breeder that we're using for the Super Mahogany project, and he's a little young, and he's not getting the job done, so we had to bring in a new stud that has the right genes, and this guy arrived this morning. How you doing? We don't know each other very well, so he could like take a chunk out of my nose right now if he wanted to, but he won't. He's a good boy. All right.
Oh.
Did you read this one already? From the Real Gerber?
Should I just read it? I know he can't hear me.
Yeah, no, he can't hear you.
Okay, I'll just read it. $10 from the Real Gerber. Happy belated birthday, Matt. I won't be listening to Cheeto in charge tonight. Not only does his big mouth cast noise pollution to my ears, but his blatant disregard to the Constitution is appalling. Yeah, I'm having a little anxiety thinking about what I'm going to hear when I hop on here. What happened?
Yeah. I've gotten to where I don't actually listen to him. I just listen to the summaries and other stuff and then go double check.
That's for the best. I can keep reading them if you... Or unless you want...
Go ahead, read that one. I'll put him up.
Okay. $10 from Regato. Happy late B-Day, Matt. I have decided to convert back to Christianity after finding solid evidence of God and the Bible being real and true. April Fools, I would not reconvert, no chance. I already knew that was going to be an April Fool's thing because people brought it up so much today in relation to Trump's announcements. Because it's ironic. $10 from the Real Gerber. I'm still trying to figure out how God allegedly created everything except for the ark. Apparently his shipwright skills were shitty, so he called in Noah. Yeah.
Noah, he built him anarchy. All right. 1086 from Corey Springer. Yeah, that new mail that arrived today is really active. We also, I'm going to save this for another time, because we finally got our imports in from Germany. And one of them is a
snake sent from Germany?
Yeah, multiple actually. There were two from a breeder in Germany. One of them is a beautiful Diamondberg python, carpet python, or diamond carpet python that is from the Gothenburg line. So it's going to be high speckled yellow. And the other one is a caramel tiger coastal carpet python male that I've got to go with a couple breeder girls we got. So,
wait, how many snakes do you guys have right now?
I don't know, but we work with 21 species of snakes.
Wow.
And while some of them we only have a single pair, like the Angolans, and I only have one pair of Mexican black king snakes and one pair of Crevos. There's some we have multiple pairs of, like the carpets. And then the ball pythons, we probably have about at least 100 of those.
Oh my gosh. Wild.
Yeah, come visit. You can see them all.
It's like a zoo
the
in there.
rodents we feed to them.
Yeah, I was just about to say I own the pets that you would feed to your snakes. Because I have bunnies and guinea pigs.
Yep.
I love them.
Arden, we raise all of our own rats, mice, and African soft furs, and Arden occasionally gets attached. There was one cute rat that got born without a tail that she was just like, oh, no, this is going to be mine. This is going to be my pet. And then it's too difficult to handle because while you don't normally, once you get used to handling him, you don't need a tail. Occasionally, if he scurries off, you would just use the tail to kind of drag back to get a better handle, and you can't do that. So he's difficult to handle. But he's really cute. He looks like a gerbil, only he's fucking huge. He's guinea pig size almost. Yeah,
I don't think anyone did anyone acknowledge Corey Springer? I mean, there's no message here to read, but okay, I didn't hear anyone say the name.
I did real quick. I just said 1086 from Corey Springer, and now I'll say thank you, Corey. There was extra content for your 1086.
$10 from Arcane Goat. 2024, they always use Big Bang Theory as evidence for God, but never Night Court or The Office. Very unoriginal.
Oh, nice. $10 from Alyssa Nguyen. Taylor, if you and other Alyssa are still doing chewed gum on Tuesdays in 2031, can we find a trans person named Taylor and have April Fool's TACIS Tuesday with Alyssa and Taylor?
What?
So you'd have Alyssa, and Taylor.
That's too much.
That's just... I'm going to say, sure, contact me in 2030 and I'll go to bat for you with Jimmy, or actually Arden will be running everything then.
$10 from Dusk Frame 7331. Here's my contribution to Dillahunty Aged Care Fund. Hope you enjoy the show, Taylor. I remember you saying you were nervous to do a show with Matt. Well, I was.
You survived.
But not like, I don't know, not too nervous. I was way more nervous when I first started doing shows because I was nervous to do shows, period. So, no,
well, you survived and you made the show better and more awesome. And oh, wait, thank you for contributing to the Dillahunty Aged Care Fund. My insurance premium has increased by over 50%
that voice
since
is a little
Trump took
too
office. Good. And because, what was that you said, you young whippersnapper? Get off of my lawn. All right. $10 from Detroit Atheist Queen. Hey, you. Letting go of the concept of heaven and hell was the hardest part of becoming a non-believer. I spent many nights having nightmares thinking I was making the wrong decision. Hashtag Arden Rocks. Fact. Hashtag Sushi Rocks. Double facts. Detroit Atheist Queen just spitting facts left and right.
$10 from Copy Privet. Love the show. Big fan of you both. Thank you.
Then you are a good person, because people who are only fans of one of us are sketchy if it's me. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. Seth, cultures dominating over others is not a facet of evolution. Your understanding of evolution is very flawed, and that's being generous. Yeah, it's... Yeah. I don't like being mean, but I mean, it's very much, I'm not even joking, that is the Tennessee public school representation or misrepresentation. Yeah. And it's because we don't teach well.
Yeah.
We oversimplify stuff. Gen Z is the first generation since we've started tracking IQ and reading comprehension that has gone down.
Yeah, it's a real problem. And in specific states, it's worse. $10 from Space Barbarian 3484 Moon. I don't know what that's referring to, but thanks.
Moon. That's where we're going with Artemis 2.
Oh. That's
also,
right. It's okay. I have short-term memory loss.
Well, I had a 5th grade teacher who gave me a New Testament. At least they taught me stuff. My ex-wife
Did they teach evolution?
Yes.
Okay.
And my ex-wife's from Tennessee, and she talked about the type of creationism that would blatantly, not just sneak in, but come roaring into schools. She's a microbiologist, and it was studying Punnett squares and genetics that got her to realize that Christianity was bullshit, because when she'd read the story about breeding the sheep, looking at spotted sticks to produce different sheep, she's like, that's not how that fucking happens. This book is bullshit. So, good job.
I love that.
I was supposed to be the youth pastor. Oh, Atheist Mechanic again. I was supposed to be the youth pastor at the Methodist church I grew up in. It was quite the surprise to everyone when it came out that I was questioning and leaning towards atheism. I'm much happier. Yeah, it is difficult, I will say. Get moderately serious for a minute.
Yeah.
Being an atheist, first of all, it doesn't impress me. I'm more impressed by people who are skeptics and humanists. I think they just happen to largely be consistent with some of those things. But it's not all roses and puppy dogs and fun stuff, especially when you find yourself as a maligned minority. And I don't want to blow smoke up anybody's ass, but most of the atheists that I've talked to who have had difficulty coming out and dealing with deconstruction ultimately end up much happier in the end.
Yeah.
And the difficult things they tend to find a way through. Greta Christina wrote a book about coming out. I think it's Coming Out Atheist, How and Why, or something. I've got it, but it's over in the other room. She interviewed, I think it was around 400 atheists.
Oh my gosh.
And only a handful of them actually regretted, even though many of them expressed difficulty and incredible sadness and depression and problems, only a handful actually regretted it and wanted to undo it.
Yeah, that sounds right. That definitely sounds right. $10 from Valblob. Liked your response to Alex O'Connor and Joseph Holland discussion. Didn't realize he was into philosophy. Are you going to respond to Joe's response to your response?
So, yeah, here's the deal. I think you mean Joseph Schmid, who I called James, and I don't know. I got 2 or 3 J names and did it all wrong. I watched part of Joseph's response to me, and then I reached out to Joseph in email and said, hey, there are people who think this is just a, talking past each other thing where we're using the same word differently. And do you want to have a conversation? We could do it live. We could do it private. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Joseph said, yes, we're actually talking tomorrow. He's going to call me tomorrow around noon. I
don't even know who he is. Who is he?
I didn't know who he was either, but he's I think a Princeton student working on a PhD in philosophy, if I'm remembering correctly. And if not, blame it on the old age. Grandpa can't always do the things he used to do. But I will say that we had a pleasant conversation so far. He apologized in his video for some stuff. It's fine. I then made a new video, which I released to patrons yesterday. And whether Joseph's a patron or not, I don't know, don't care. I sent him the link privately because it is a clarification of what I'm talking about when I say claims aren't evidence of the claim. Mm-hmm. And for those who know anything about object-oriented programming, my case is that a claim is a pointer to the evidence in the same way that a pointer variable in object-oriented programming is pointing to a memory location that contains the data. The pointer never becomes the data, and the claim never becomes the evidence or the data. And he's already seen it and responded, and he has it clears up quite a bit, but he has one thing for us to address, and I'll address it tomorrow. And I think... So I definitely do not agree, if you're watching, Joseph, I definitely do not agree with what you sent. And I think I have a way of explaining why. But that, if nothing else, it's going to be a good conversation because we've hashed out some of the details ahead of time and are now able to kind of dig in a little bit. There was a caller tonight, full disclosure, that we did not take that was calling in from Israel to say claims are definitely evidence. And that person is definitely wrong. But I didn't want to get into it tonight because there's a new video that's coming out and I'm having the conversation with Joseph tomorrow. So maybe next week. There we go. There's the long explanation.
$10 from Arcane Goat 2024. I ground my morality in Bigfoot. Always ask yourself, what would Bigfoot do? Hide from humans and enjoy nature mostly. True. Sounds nice.
I don't know. I don't know what Bigfoot do. And Tracy Harris used to have a thing where she'd talk about it's strange that the Bigfoot believers, rather than demonstrating that he actually exists, they'll have discussions about their mating habits and other things. It's all this speculative like fan fiction thing. And it was funny because I got to go to South by Southwest and my friend that I went with, Dr. Angie, who will be back on the show at some point to talk about healthcare stuff. She got to go see the documentary on Bigfoot. The guys who actually pulled off that hoax, the original footage, have now given all the information and produced, excuse me, I got hiccups so bad, produced a documentary exposing what they did. And it's going to be very interesting to watch how the pro-Bigfoot crowd tries to continue justifying this, just like the flat earthers try to continue justifying.
Wow.
$10 in New Zealand money, which I'm sure is worth so much more than mine now, From Mountain Eucalyptus, leaving religion, did you ever feel guilt over people you left behind, those who loved you and now believe you chose in hell and experienced distress as a result, or people you once encouraged to say? I'll answer mine real quick and then let Taylor go. I did not experience guilt, but I did experience quite a bit of depression and frustration, and I guess sympathy, because those people were indoctrinated the same as I was by well-intentioned people. My parents didn't hate me. My pastor didn't hate me. They all thought what they were doing was right and good and true. And at least currently, they're unable to see that or defend it. I'll never feel guilty for advocating for the truth and being me.
Yeah. I felt some guilt when I told them because I know I would cause a lot of like heartbreak and negative emotion. But I also feel like I did a pretty good job of severing that whole thing that comes with Christianity of the pressure of saving other people's souls, which isn't what I would be doing, but I'm not responsible for like how people live their lives and like what beliefs they have. But I mean, sometimes I don't have good feelings when I think that my family is like tormented by thoughts about like some kind of evil and conspiracies that stress them out unnecessarily.
Yeah, I just don't feel guilt for that because I'm not the cause of it. Their religion is. If they hadn't been fed false expectations about everything. I think religion, I mean, to paraphrase Hitchens, poisons virtually everything, especially our thoughts on death and dying. If you weren't given unrealistic expectations about the human condition in life, I think we'd be dealing with death and dying a lot differently.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Lay the blame on God. That also made the conversations easier. I know I've mentioned this many times before. One of the things that made the conversations with my parents easier is, Mom, Dad, you believe that there is a God, right? Yes. And this God has a plan. Yes. And everything happens according to this God's plan, right? Yep. And that if God wants me to know he exists, he can and will reveal himself to me, right? And that you telling me about it is never going to be enough, right? So instead of feeling guilty that you failed me as spiritual leaders, all you need to do is pray that God will reveal himself to me according to his plan at sometimes later. And that put the responsibility back on God where it belongs, which as far as I can tell is a fictional void.
Yeah, that's a good way to go about it.
$15 from Annabelle Lukasiak. I've been listening to Matt for a long time. Well, let me put on my voice again. I've been listening to Matt for a long time. He helped me feel more confident in what I believe or don't believe in. Lol. Any day I get to listen to you debate is a good day. Heart sending love to you both. Why are you spelling you with just a letter, you young whippersnapper? All right, I already did young whippersnapper. Thank you so much, Annabelle. I'm grateful to be of use or benefit to anybody because that's not always the case.
$10 from Joshua Everett 9887. It may well be impossible for us to reach any warranted conclusions about free will. Any option has already resulted in the world we live in. With the opinions we have on the subject, all roads lead here. Yeah, I always say I don't know because I don't, and I don't really care.
Yeah, it's calling on a Monday night for Skeptalk when like Aaron Adair or somebody's on, who might dig into the science showing that every decision you think you made is actually made before you're even aware of it. And you, in retrospect, rationalize that it was you who made that decision. We're weird. The world is weird.
It's definitely like fun and interesting conversation, but every day when I think about it, I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Taylor, can we see the blanket on your chair? Says Forever Unbound, $10. It looks neat.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me to see this. So it's on Etsy, but it's all the evolutions. And yeah, I got it from somebody on Etsy and they still sell it. So I highly recommend. It's a little pricey, but worth it. Very cute.
Are you aware that that's Arden's favorite?
The evolutions?
Well, Espeon is my favorite.
Espeon is her
I'm
favorite.
sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry he doesn't get Pokemon very well. He's a boomer.
No,
You're close.
I knew she liked Espeon because when I started coming on the show, somebody was doing hashtag Espeon sucks. And I was like, Hold up. Espeon does not suck because I love Espeon and Umbreon together like so much. I love them both. So I was fighting for Espeon. So I did know that. It stuck with me.
Quiet girl. Sorry, dog. Not.
I knew that it was. I knew that it was Espeon. I was literally getting ready to say it right when you said it. I knew it wasn't Jolteon or Flareon or Umbreon or Leafeon or Sylveon or Glaceon or Vapor.
Hey, you know them all.
Do you have a list in front of you?
I have a list in front of me.
Yeah, you fucking fraud.
I still
Wow,
definitely
you're so
knew
fake.
that it was Espeon. I have bought you Espeon things.
Oh.
I don't think it's fair that you're going to beat up on me when I got it right. $10 from Beaker Squeakers. As some with ADD, my will isn't free. It costs a lot of spoons. Facts. And there are some calls where I run out of spoons more quickly than other people do. Thank you so much, Beaker Squeakers.
$9.99 from Nexus Spector. I don't know. Happy birthday, Matt. Jim, I don't know, actually.
Let's go fuck yourself, Jimmy.
Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Okay, I was right. And then JFR. I'm never gonna get these. What is JFR?
That might be a Justin community one. They've spilled over into
so
ours.
many.
I don't know what JFR is. Justin for something.
Hey, I like the Team Taylor one. You guys can keep
Hell
that
yeah.
hashtag.
You know what? I don't know that there's ever been a hashtag Team Matt. I just don't compete. I'm not competitive at all. Arden can let you know I couldn't possibly be competitive.
Oh, no, not at all.
$10 from Melatonin Ollie. Happy late birthday, Matt, for your birthday. I bought myself some Epic Loot merch. What? It was great to see Taylor on the Hang Up. Hashtag Team Arden. Hashtag the one true God. Well, congrats. By the way, we've redone the logo. So the old merch is going to get completely phased out. And anybody who hasn't seen, the new logo is phenomenal. The new layout that we used at NARBC is great. And I'm going to take that logo and get some custom snake bags and a few other things. Actually, because Arden and I have started doing leather working as a hobby, I'm going to get a custom leather stamp made of our Epic Loot logo so that if we end up making things, who knows,
cool.
I might make some sort of leather thing for your spider enclosure and we'll stamp it with the Epic Loot Exotics, whatever.
Okay, I think that was the last one.
Woot!
Hey.
Well, Taylor, it was an absolute pleasure. Let's do this again or a Sunday show or whatever.
No.
Thrilled with the progress the line's making. I know I've got a meeting to go to on Saturday with more information about what's coming up on the line. And I don't know because I had to get work done when the last meeting was.
Same.
But
we'll be there Saturday.
So yeah, we'll see Taylor Saturday. But for all of you who are watching, I know there's new stuff coming up. I know there's new ideas. I know there's people coming up, but it's still about building a broader community where one network can provide you with a bunch of different views that are at least cohesive and reliable in the sense that we are trying to do our best to have good conversations, to challenge ideas that are potentially bad and harmful, to support quality and justice and autonomy, and make sure that there are people getting their hands on a microphone and an audience that don't just look like me and haven't been doing this for 20 fucking years. I almost said 21, but I can't remember the actual date, so I might not got there. In any case, thanks everybody for my Wednesday night therapy. If you want to support the organization, not only can you click like and subscribe, you can join to get yourself, I think, out of slow mode. You can go to linemerch.com to get merch there. You can go to epiclootexotics.com and find out more about our business and merch there. But the big thing is you can like and subscribe. You can tell people about the show, and you can go to patreon.com/calltheline to support us directly there as well.